Put my mic on. Okay, council, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is a special meeting of council just today to deal with the budget. No other items under council's procedural rules are allowed to be considered at this meeting. I'd like to ask everybody in the audience and council members and staff, please turn off any of your phones, electronic devices, or turn them on inaudible mode so they don't disrupt the meeting. Thank you. Council, under some of the changes, there's a bit of a change here. You've received a page with the items 4.1, the report from our CAO, and 5.1, which is the report from our treasurer. And also we have 3 delegations. Under delegations, we'll have Charles Scott, Dave Capel, and Chris Benjar. And for those folks that may be in the audience that may want to speak, there's always an opportunity at the very end of the meeting to ask any questions on anything on this agenda today. Okay, so in terms of how we're going to proceed, council, after I do declarations of conflict of interest, we're going to be doing the presentation from our CAO and our treasurer first. Then we'll open the floor for the delegations, and then we'll do the minutes of the budget committee of the 27th and 28th, which you've all been through, and then we'll go back to the report from Dave Sutton, the treasurer. Okay, from there. There's always opportunities all along to ask questions. Okay, so I will need a motion to approve the agenda, moved by Councillor Moore and seconded by Councillor Pleshy. The agenda for the special council meeting of December 6th be approved and printed as circulated. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Can we sign that? Yes, please. Okay. All right. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest under the Municipal Act? I'm going to declare a conflict on the budget as it pertains to wages for union, as my son works for transit in the union section. I don't see my board now, so how do I get back to my board so I can see? Oh, right there. Oh, on the side. Okay, thank you. Councillor Willens.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair, I'd like to declare a conflict of interest on the Public Works salary portion of the budget. Okay. As my brother and nephew both work for the Public Works.
Thank you. Councillor Frattini.
Thank you. Through the Chair, I'm going to declare a conflict as my daughter works for Park and Rec on salary.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll move to presentations by our CAO, Harry Schlang, and our Treasurer, Dave Sutton. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Chair and Council and members of the public. This presentation of the budget is on behalf of much of the staff. As the Chair said before, we've been working on this budget since January, February of this year. We've been working on it every day as a team to try and see how we can do things better for the residents of Brampton. So I'll just be doing a little bit of the background, the overview and the introductions, background a little bit on the value of citizens and what we've been doing to date. And then Dave on the right side of the agenda will really be getting into the details of the budget. But again, what we've been embarking on as a council and as a staff team is an organizational transformation over the last 18 months. Really, transformation should happen all the time. How do we improve? How do we continuously improve our services for the public? We've done a tremendous amount of community engagement in 2017. I'm going to talk a bit about that. But now the real heavy lifting starts as we need to transform the community at large. And this budget does represent some momentum that we built in 2017. It was just about 2 sessions ago I presented some accomplishments on our strat plan for 2017. Council just repivoted the strategic plan in March of this year. And when we look back, it's only been about 9 months and we've got tremendous momentum. But how do we continue to build on that? This budget does represent our continued momentum. When we talk about transformation, when we started it, we originally said we wanted to build a better organization. An organization that is much quicker, faster in its decision making. We reduce layers of management, we reduce duplication in the corporation, and then the byproduct of all that was cost improvement. We had committed going into the 2018 budget that we would, last year when I presented to you, that we'd pull out about $4.3 million off the bottom line. We did find an additional $300,000, and really $4.6 million is pure cost reduction year over year. We've also, as a team, and when we talk about future ready internally in the corporation, it's really how we work together horizontally across the corporation, how we help each other, how we share services, how we drive to build more capacity, to build the increased volumes that we're facing each and every day. And I can honestly say we're really proud that we brought about another 9.4 million of cost improvement, building capacity in the corporation. So this year, going into 18, by the transformation and us working as a team in a much more business-like fashion, we've really helped build a capacity of over 8 million, 12 million, and then the cost reductions year over year, 4.6. So the engagement in the community, we've had a number of programs, and Antonetta came to you this morning, but there was many others. We've actually touched about 40,000 Bramptonians over the last year in various ways. And that doesn't include the views or the hits on our various programs, which is well exceeding that. But we've got a tremendous amount of input from the public to really set the tone for moving forward. And we're hearing the same things over and over again. We really want the city to be greener. We really want the city to drive on its transportation infrastructure requirements. We really are concerned about the health and well-being of our community. And of course, the university is fundamental in driving forward the innovation we need in this community, and investing in our youth to develop more innovative and educational skills is the best investment we could ever make. But the real work really begins now, the heavy lifting on the community transformation. We're working really well as a team. Everybody's working together, but now the real heavy lifting will begin. And this budget really does help us build on that momentum. And we really looked at 2019 and 2020 as well of, you have to continue to invest in our community. We've heard from 7 to 10-year-olds to seniors to the profile that we had at our session 2 weeks ago with Larry Beasley, that we really have to change the way Brampton looks and feels, and we feel we've got that momentum. This budget does allow us to continue with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harry, Mr. Chair, members of council, and members of the public. I'm pleased to be here before you to present the recommended 2018 to 2020 operating capital budgets. This multi-year budget is the direct result of many months of listening to our community about the future they see for our city. As the CAO alluded to earlier, the amount of community engagement we have done over this past year is unprecedented. In addition to the public engagement undertaken and the feedback received to inform the budgeting process, I would like to speak briefly about some interactions between staff and council that have led us up to today. Earlier in the year, we held a council workshop on the long-term financial master plan, and coinciding with the final consultant's report, council later debated and endorsed the long-term financial master plan. Following up on this was a council workshop in September with a presentation by staff and an opportunity for open discussion on the budget. Budget documentation was distributed and made available to the public on November 6th in coinciding with our Let's Connect Budget 2018 strategy, communication strategy. Pre-budget discussions were held with council members between November 14th and December 5th. And as you know, budget committee deliberations took place last week. Responses to questions from those pre-budget discussions were prepared by staff and presented to budget committee at that time. Mr. Chair and members of council, this multi-year budget demonstrates that we are investing for impact. We're investing in order to transform our city to be a leader on the global stage. This budget includes significant investments in transit to ensure our citizens can connect to their places of employment, schools, and their community. Fire and emergency services to ensure that we live in a safe community. Redevelopment of our recreational facilities to ensure our citizens continue to have opportunities to lead an active lifestyle. A university and center for education, innovation, and collaboration. Our commitment to lifelong learning, enabling more affordable local post-secondary education for families while also serving as an incubus for entrepreneurship in our community. And a reimagined downtown, which will instill a sense of community pride right in the heart of the city. Brampton is growing, vibrant, and a young city. To put this in perspective and to serve as context for the budgeting pressures that the city faces, Brampton is the second fastest growing city of the top 25 cities in Canada. We have over 40 people moving into Brampton each and every day. 1 in 3.6 Bramptonians are under the age of 19. Building activity continues to be very strong. Visits to our libraries and access to print and digital media continues to rise. Fire and emergency services, enforcement, and animal services divisions are responding to ever-increasing calls. Transit ridership is estimated to reach over 27 million, an increase of over 17% from 2016. Use of our recreation centers continues to rise, and supporting all of this programming is over $5 billion in assets that require ongoing maintenance and replacement. The 2018 net budget increase is 3.7%. When combined with the region and school boards, Brampton taxpayers will see a 2.7% overall property tax bill impact. Through the hard work of leadership team and our dedicated staff, the organizational transformation is demonstrating that the city can deliver more or the same with less, all in the face of this strong growth. Base operating and growth impacts for 2018 at the city are decreasing by 1.3%. Base operating and growth adjustments allow the city to remain competitive in attracting and retaining top talent, absorbing inflationary pressures, and also delivering services into new growth areas that our long-term residents have come to expect. As we recently learned, Bill 148, Fair Workplaces, Better Jobs Act, was just passed by the province. The city, like other businesses, is not immune to the impacts of these changes. The impact of the initial minimum wage increase to $14 an hour and the resulting indirect impact on other wages will see the city absorbing an additional 0.5% in cost impacts in 2018. Cost pressure from a further minimum wage increase to $15 an hour in 2019 will have additional impacts on the operating budgets in both 2019 and 2020. Also included in the 2018 net budget increase is the minimum recommended 2% annual infrastructure levy. Over the next 10 years, the city's infrastructure investment needs are estimated to be around $1.8 billion. That's B with a billion, for billion. And the city's contribution to these needs is estimated to be around $1.2 billion. This includes current base contributions, assumes an annual 2% infrastructure levy increase is maintained, and a number of projected grants, including federal gas tax and public transit infrastructure funds, are realized. This will leave the city with an infrastructure gap of around $600 million in 10 years. I would like to take this opportunity to remind Council that the long-term financial master plan indicated that an annual infrastructure levy of around 5% was the amount required to fully eliminate the infrastructure backlog in 10 years. I think it is important to acknowledge the bold step that this Council committed to over this term of Council and reaffirmed through the endorsement of the long-term financial master plan that a minimum recommended 2% annual infrastructure levy was required to ensure that the infrastructure gap began to stabilize within 10 years. In the meantime, the gap continues to grow. It is clear that more investment is needed in order to ensure that our assets are maintained in a state of good repair or for their eventual replacement. If the vision of Brampton is to be a global leader, then we will have to be bold and consider making additional investments to realize the vision. Without additional investment, services delivered to our community will remain at risk. To provide some further context, every additional 1% annual infrastructure levy increase would generate $200 million to invest over 10 years in the sustainability of our assets. These investments include parks, playgrounds, recreational facilities, roads, libraries, and buses, to name a few. The 2018 budget also presents a number of new service and service enhancements. Together, these make up an additional net budget increase of 2.4%. First off, the recommendation includes further substantial investment to improve your ride, which has a net budget increase of 1%. Brampton Transit has seen unprecedented ridership growth, up 88% from 2009 and up 17% year over year. This investment in our transit network includes increasing the fleet of Zoom buses by 34 to expand bus rapid transit and to provide regional connections to Malton GO Station near Pearson Airport. Secondly, the recommendation includes further substantial investment in our fire and emergency services, as citizen safety is a top priority. Continuing on from 2017, we are adding new fire trucks and firefighters to provide fire full response of 5 trucks on scene in 8 minutes. We are also making a major investment in a new, fully centralized fire campus, which includes the replacement of a fire station, a new training facility, a new emergency operations center, and a replacement headquarters. This investment will ensure that the city's fire and emergency response is maintained at a high standard and our fire personnel receive the necessary training and can continue to practice these essential skills for when the time is needed. Together, these have a net budget increase of 1.1% in 2018. The 2018 operating budget also recommends funding for a secondary unit task force. The impact on the budget is 0.1%. These resources would focus on illegal second unit housing and utilize advanced and innovative strategies to combat proliferation of illegal units. This investment is being recommended to ensure community safety is upheld and resources are not being redeployed from other important enforcement activities. And finally, the operating budget includes a recommendation to open an interim library location in the southwest section of the city, a precursor to the development of a library branch as part of a combined community center in Bram West. The net budget impact is 0.02% in 2018 and a further 0.02% in 2019, representing full annualization of these operating costs over 2 years. This service expansion is in support of the Brampton Library Strategic Plan, where there are flexible service points servicing a rapidly growing city. Having said all this, I would now like to highlight the overall picture as it pertains to the 2018 operating budget and also highlight the 2019 to 2020 forecast. For 2018, there's a $16.5 million increase year over year in the net budget, or a 3.7% increase. For 2019, a $24.6 million increase year over year, or a 5.4% increase. And for 2020, a $21.9 million increase, or 4.6% increase year over year. And to provide some additional context, every 1% net budget increase or net budget change equates to $4.5 million. I'd also like to touch briefly on the hospital levy. The hospital levy was first introduced on the property tax bill in 2013 as the city's contribution towards the Peel Memorial Centre for Integrated Health and Wellness. This levy would see $60 million collected over 6 years. In 2016, a payment of $40 million was made coinciding with the completion of Phase 1. As a result of investment earnings realized on fund balances collected since inception, staff are recommending a partial reduction in the hospital levy in 2018 in advance of the original council directive for full removal in 2019. This early reduction still ensures that the remaining $20 million commitment for Phase 2 of the facility is available. As far as the 2018-2020 capital budgets are concerned, the recommended budgets are $258 million, $338 million, and $262 million respectively. I would like to emphasize the amount of teamwork that went into arriving at this recommendation. This year, leadership team made a concerted effort to develop criteria to rank and prioritize the city's capital requirements on a corporate-wide basis. Discussions ensued with leadership team, and a final corporate recommendation was established. This significant effort and demonstration of teamwork emphasizes the new way of doing business at the city and more appropriately aligns funding with that of our strategic plan and key initiatives. Over the next 3 years, we are recommending investments in fire and emergency services for new and replacement fire vehicles, and as mentioned previously, the fully centralized fire campus. It is recommended that these initiatives be funded through a combination of DCs, tax funding, internal borrowing from the Community Investment Fund, and external debt issuance, approximately $70 million in total. We are also recommending significant investments in transit over the next 3 years, adding 31 new buses for conventional transit service and 34 new buses for Zoom Bus Rapid Transit service. Again, as a result of the very strong ridership numbers being experienced in our transit network. It is recommended that these initiatives be funded through a combination of tax funding, internal borrowing from our Community Investment Fund, and grants, approximately $115 million in total over 3 years. And as you know, the city has made a commitment to, in principle, of investing up to $50 million in a new university over 10 years and a $100 million investment in a Center for Education, Innovation, and Collaboration, which includes a new flagship library, entrepreneurial space, and cultural space. This investment is a transformative one and reflects Brampton's commitment to lifelong learning, and which also promises some very positive ongoing economic impacts for our community. The most financially prudent approach to funding these initiatives is through a $50 million draw from the Legacy Fund over the next 10 years for the university component and $100 million in external debt issuance for the Center for Education, Innovation, and Collaboration. Another significant investment is the Downtown Reimagined initiative. This investment in the heart of our city will create an integrated open space and an exciting venue for gatherings, events, and festivals. It will create vibrant streetscapes that will bring pedestrians and cyclists together in a safe and sustainable manner. It is recommended that the $31 million required for this initiative be funded through external debt issuance. And finally, we are investing in the redevelopment of our recreational facilities, namely Howden, Balmoral, and Chris Gibson. This will ensure that our recreation centers remain relevant, vibrant community hubs. It is recommended that the $72 million required for these redevelopment projects be funded through a combination of development charges, tax-based funding, and cash in lieu of parkland. So what does this all mean for the taxpayer in 2018? For the average home assessed at $471,000, and with the increases proposed for the city, and with those approved at the regional level, the property tax bill would equate to $4,857. The city portion making up around 47%, the regional portion at 37%, and the balance being the school boards at 16%. We've also shown several property tax bill levels for various forms of homes in Brampton. So in summary, from an overall standpoint, the city net budget increase is 3.7%, which translates into 1.7% on the overall tax bill, or an additional $80 more for the average home. The Region of Peel net budget increase of 2.6% translates into 1% on the overall tax bill, or $46 more for the average home. And as we've mentioned before, the school boards, there's no change. So overall, when all three levels are combined, this equates to a 2.7% increase, or an additional $126 on the property tax bill for the average home. Mr. Chair and members of council, this budget submission demonstrates our desire and ambition to be future ready and deliver results based on listening to our community. This concludes our presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. Before I go to delegations, I just want to thank staff for all the work that they put into this. When I was asked to chair the budget, I had two things I wanted to accomplish, and that was first to open up the budget, the year-long process, both to the public and for council members to have a say in, rather than the old way of doing things and getting a budget 2 or 3 weeks before and then going line by line and trying to figure it out. Those are the old ways of doing things, and I want to thank staff for everything they've done. I know the mayor and the CAO agreed with me at the time that we had to make sure the public had a lot more say in the months. I mean, it has been quite a year, but maybe 9 months before the budget. And the council members also have to. And I know that all the commissioners and staff opened up their calendars to the council members to be able to answer questions or ask questions before it actually got down to those last few days of it. And I really want to thank the staff for doing that, because I know their calendars are, like ours, are very, very busy. So thank you very much. You gentlemen can come up and sit up here and we'll start the delegation process. Okay, folks, I'm going to open up the floor now to, I'm sorry, Mayor Jeffrey?
Being running late. I just wanted to declare a conflict. I've declared it at the beginning of the other meetings. I just wanted to confirm that I have a conflict of interest on the full-time portion of salaries union, as my son is a mechanic at Brampton Transit. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So we're going to go to delegations now. My first delegation is Charles Scott, the Brampton resident and former chair of the Brampton Arts and Cultural Panel. Welcome, Chuck. It says Charles, but I usually call you Chuck. So.
That works just as well, thank you. Chairman, Madam Mayors, councillors, staff, thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm here today to talk about the 2018 budget with regards to arts and culture. First, let me say that we've made a few baby steps towards a stronger arts-oriented city. You've moved arts and culture into economic development, a better home than recreation, and there has been a greater effort to engage the arts community than in the past. Over the last 2 years, I've chaired the Arts and Culture Panel for Council, participated in numerous arts and culture events around the city, and recently sat at the Arts and Culture table during the Future Ready Charrette. I've listened to the artists, arts groups, cultural supporters, and they wonder why in this age where study after study says that arts and culture creates jobs, drives economy, and is a future-proof industry, why our city is so woefully underfunded in the arts. And why, when you councillors say you support the arts, that there is little to show for it in the last few years. This budget has $100,000 in Arts and Culture Community Grant Program. This is all the funds available to over 50 groups and organizations across our city. So if we share that money evenly, that's $2,000 per group. For some, that's more than they need, but for most, it's far from enough. I want to make it clear that I do not think the city should fully fund any group, but that the city must be there for a significant portion of core funding in the arts. The Brampton Guardian in February 2017 stated that our population is 593,638. That means that the Arts and Culture Grant Program represents 17 cents per capita in our city. This compares to the national average in all of the major cities of $8.86 in their community grant programs. If Brampton just matched the national average, that would mean our grant program would be $5.2 million. This information is from the Municipal Benchmarking Canada. When you add the cost of providing all cultural services, including grants, the funding of events, cultural venues, art galleries, historical sites, and museums, the total is $26.84 on average across our country. For Brampton's population, this would be $14.1 million. In contrast, Brampton puts $13.81 into half the national average. But I don't want to stand here and just bombard you with numbers and prove that arts and culture in Brampton has the lowest amount of investment in Canada, or tell you that we stand far behind all of the cities in the GTA and the top 15 cities in Canada in arts infrastructure. Brampton places ninth by population in this country. But Brampton does not have nor support a municipal art gallery. Brampton does not have or support a municipal arts council. Brampton does not have or support a public arts program funded through, as many cities do, levies in construction. Brampton does not have or support a studio or makerspace in our community. Brampton does have an artist-run center, but does not support it to the amount of money that all of the other cities support their artist-run centers. For every city in the top 10 has cities, except Brampton, has a municipal art gallery. Every city in the top 10 has an artist-run center supported by those cities, and many have many artist-run centers. Every city in the top 10 invests millions in arts and cultures, except for Brampton. Even my hometown in North Bay, with 51,000 people, supports a municipal gallery and 3 artist-run centers. Arts and culture is a $28.5 billion industry in Ontario with over 300,000 jobs. Yet Brampton, most of our citizens that work in the arts have to leave Brampton to do their work. I know that we are in the process of creating an arts and culture master plan, and you're probably going to say, let's wait till that gets finished. But we need to get in front of this issue. We need to invest money where we can make significant change to our economy in our city. So here are 3 simple ideas that you can do, all of which are supported by the Art Panel and the Future Ready Charrette. Number 1, starting immediately, study where we could build a municipal gallery and a municipal art makerspace. 2, fund and put in place immediately a new version of the Arts Council based on even their old budget in this funding plan. And finally, give core funding to the only artist-run center in Brampton, Beaux-Arts Brampton. They've demonstrated with their new board and executive director a noticeable change in their programming that would be a gigantic gap in our community if they were allowed to fail because of lack of investment for the city. thank you very much for letting me
Thank you,
talk to you
Chuck.
today.
We do have some speakers. I'm not sure if there's questions, but I'll go to the speakers. Councillor Moore?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Through you, Chuck, thank you for your presentation. As I think certainly every member around this table recalls, when the Brampton Arts Council decided to close their doors in 2015, as a result of the budget deliberations, they concluded that the city wasn't going to continue their funding, and they made a decision to dissolve, which really left us sort of starting from scratch. And you were asked if you could, provide your valuable expertise, and did so. Thank you very much for that. I think the fact that the city has undertaken to do an arts and culture master plan is a demonstration of our commitment to the arts. I think that, and you did a good job of sort of highlighting some of the opportunities that you have participated in as a way to gather intelligence in the community about the arts community, and that you've been an active participant in that. In preparation for the budget deliberations this year and in our pre-budget meetings with staff, I asked them if they would put together, for us, in the absence of the Arts Council, for us to get a handle on just how are we supporting arts and culture in our community. And staff put together a list which is not exhaustive, because when we went through it, or when I went through it, there were certainly some things that were missing from it. But since 2015, the City of Brampton, this council, have committed $6.14 million to arts and culture initiatives. With one caveat, I will say that the lion's share of the 6.14 million has gone to arts and culture. Some of this has been for other initiatives in the city to help them build capacity. Some of it has been to sports groups, again, to build capacity and to help us to achieve some of our economic development goals. I think the Arts and Culture Master Plan is going to give us the roadmap and some clarity in terms of how we support the arts. And I don't think there's a member around here who's ever said that they don't recognize the value, and I've said it before. I'll say it again because there may be new folks in the room, but the arts are the third largest employer in North America when you consider all of the industry that supports the arts. And you're right, we need to properly support it in our community. But I think until we get to the Arts and Culture Master Plan, we have done a pretty good job around this table. $6 million is a lot of money over 2 years to support arts and culture initiatives in the community. So is there more that we can do? Absolutely. And, I think it's your job to come forward and tell us that, and remind us that the arts are a vibrant part of our community and that they need to be front and center as we develop our budgets moving forward. But I do like, I tried to make note of the three things that your suggestion, but I'm not sure how achievable they are in the short term. But as the city looks at the commitment we've made for an innovation center in downtown Brampton, a new central library and an innovation center and a research center, I think that the arts are very much woven into all aspects of that. And so I think there is an opportunity as we look at an iconic presence in our downtown that supports research, innovation, collaboration. The arts are a part of that. Thank you.
Councillor Willens.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chuck, for coming in. Your points are well taken. Certainly, I was part of that original group that got the Arts and Culture Master Plan going again, and I do sit with the Culture Master Plan. I preferably would like to wait and see what comes up, because we're in the middle stages of the Master Plan right now, so it would be nice to see where the right money goes, if we're putting the money in the right place currently or in the past. But I do have to correct you, though. A friendly correction, we do have a makerspace inside our Brampton Library, which the city does fund as well, so there is and that's very active. But thank you again, you've got great ideas, and we'll certainly listen to them as council as we move forward with the Cultural Master Plan. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you very much. Our next delegation is Dave Capel, Brampton business owner. Saw Dave here. Oh, there he is. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you. Good afternoon, folks. Chair, Madam Mayor, councillors, staff, thank you for giving me a few minutes to talk. I heard there was a bit of a conversation last week somewhere with respect to the facade program. And I don't know where it is, but I thought I'll give my 2 cents in. As you know, I own a number of properties in the downtown area, and I wanted to stress a major point actually. I was a bit surprised at some of the numbers I saw. We did a calculation of, since we have done the facade work on our buildings, how much impact it had on employment in downtown. And I was actually shocked that through all the buildings, we brought in approximately 50 new businesses and 50 employees. Then I went and looked at the city numbers with respect to the facade program as to what kind of numbers they had. And I found that as of December 2016, it brought in extra 101 employees in downtown and approximately 50 businesses. No, 19 businesses, I'm sorry. And that was it was nice. And that actually, when I saw those numbers, it hit very close to my heart because there was a time I was unemployed. And I was knocking doors and I was not getting a job. And I had to sleep on the floors for 6 months. So I know the value of that one job. And if this is affecting 101 people up to 2016, I think it's absolutely magnificent. The second thing I would like to say is I think it's a stepping stone for Brampton to bring larger organizations in downtown and in the city of Brampton, because if our city's face looks beautiful, I think it attracts businesses from outside. Like we can go out, I can go out to India or I can go out to England, I can attract some business owner to come to the city of Brampton. And when they come to our downtown, it doesn't leave a very good taste. And they look at Mississauga, they look at Toronto, and off they go, and which is kind of very disheartening. I know it's not a big number when I look at the totality of what city is doing and the impact it has had. I don't know the exact numbers of the building. I think it's about 19 properties. Hang on, give me a second. I think it brought in about 14 buildings took advantage of this program. I deal as a financial advisor. I deal with high net worth clients. And every time these clients come to my office, one thing I always notice, and I hear from them, that listen, downtown is really changing. Brampton is changing. And I think that's a very encouraging thing, and I thank all of you for having this program in place. And I just hope we continue with it. If anything, we should add some more into it and encourage more property owners to improve their buildings, improve their businesses. It helps me in my negotiation when I'm negotiating lease. There's a dentist we brought in at one of our buildings, and that was one of the things we said. I said, there's a grant program available. You're renovating. She's putting in about close to $500,000 into the business. And I said, well, okay, you know what? There's about 30 grand you can get. And I don't know how much it was, but it played part in the negotiations for her coming here. And she's going to be employing about 6 employees, and they are all from local downtown. So for whatever it's worth, you guys are doing a great job. Just carry on, and please don't take this program away. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Councillor Dillon?
Yes, just a question to you. So I'll ask the question now. I got a couple of comments as well. I just wanted to know where you got, respectfully, where you received these measures from. I had tried to, I'll be open with you, I've been against the facade program. And I'll tell you why. The reason why I'm asking, because I've tried to get the information and I haven't been able to get exact measures on how beneficial the facade program is. I guess you could say, I'm a free market purist, that if you're going to do business, you should, you shouldn't depend on the government. There's certain circumstances where I think, government intervention is okay. But the reason I've been opposed to it is because this opportunity or this privilege has not been given to the rest of the city. And I think that if we're going to improve facades, that's fine. And there was about $300,000 savings we had, which I wanted to use towards a seniors bus program. And so I think the meat and potatoes of Brampton businesses doing well are, the health and life sciences hub that we're going to be attempting to develop, the university, as well as an LRT eventually coming into Brampton. I think those are the major game changers. So I've always said that when we really focus on those three particular areas, business will do well. We won't need a facade program. There's businesses right now that are going out of business. So I've asked for the numbers. I don't think I've received them yet. So if you can somehow maybe even tell me now where you received those, or
Sure.
If you can send them to me, I'd really appreciate it. Again, if it helps business out, I'm all for it. I haven't really seen that because of the number of business shops going out of business. But again, we really need major change to strengthen business in the downtown.
Actually, quite frankly, all I did was I called Anthony Wong at development office. I sent him an email, said, can I have these numbers? And he sent them to me. So I think it's easy. But I will be happy to give them to you.
Yeah, send those to me.
Yeah, sure,
I've been
absolutely.
trying to get them for ages.
Absolutely, I'll be happy to share that. The only thing I was going to say was that the facade program itself, I think it impacts the employment in the city, not directly but indirectly, because when your city looks good, people want to do business here. When they want to do business here, it has a rolling effect. That the businesses do, they come in, that brings employees in, or if the existing businesses do better, people are walking in downtown, people are doing certain things, as a result they spend money, which helps the businesses, and it multiplies. And so it may be a small number, and you're right, maybe government should not help any business in their growth, but governments do all over the place. And this is a very small amount of money compared to what we waste on a whole bunch of things, as we all know. You may not agree with it, but the things we spend money on, which is millions and millions of dollars goes out. And we're talking about a $300,000, which is changing, which is going to help change the image of city of Brampton. And if we can't put value on that, maybe I'm thick up here, or something's wrong with me perhaps. Because it doesn't make sense to me.
No, and I don't disagree.
Back and forth, though.
No, I don't disagree absolutely. But what I'm just to conclude, what I was saying was that putting that aside, I think this opportunity should, if we're going to give it to downtown, we should give it to other wards, and I think there's businesses all across the city.
Absolutely,
that could use it. But to this point, I haven't really seen the investment justified by how much money we're giving. So that's all I really got to say.
If I may just add.
Hey, hold it. Everything's got to go through the chair, please.
Oh, sorry, through the chair.
Unless you know what, maybe after the meeting, you two can get
Yeah,
together.
I'm new at this, so please.
You can just email it to me, and then we'll have a discussion on it.
Honestly,
I
Dave,
appreciate it.
and I'll be open and honest, it was me that mentioned your name there, and I haven't talked to you since I mentioned it, but I said somebody needs to get David Capel here to tell everybody why we have facade improvement programs. You're the perfect example of somebody who took advantage of that and did some really good stuff, so I want to thank you for that. But I haven't talked to you in the last few days, I didn't have time to do that. Councillor Spilgari?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Dave, for the presentation. And I'm really happy that you're so positive about the future of Brampton, especially downtown.
Absolutely.
And we're very grateful that you are investing that you're a good investor here in Brampton and making a difference. So,
thank you.
Thank you for that. One of the things that I've been pushing for ever since I became a councillor here and the reason is just the streetscape of downtown Brampton, and I believe that now we're actually doing something about it finally. We had the opportunity to, and I believe that's going to make a huge difference in attracting people to come down here and actually shop and spend some time in the downtown. And all the amenities that are available here. I believe that once that work is done, it's going to transform the city even more than the program.
Councillor, we're getting a little off. This
Now
is a
the
budget
question,
meeting, not
the
a,
question I have to, the question I have, I'm coming to my question now, You mentioned that it was 17 new businesses have come in the last while.
Actually, 101 businesses as of December 2016 for the city of Brampton. And I know our own buildings, we have affected 50 new businesses.
Okay.
And that's partly through one of the businesses we have called BBES, it's Brampton Executive Suites. And because the building is so nice, people want to, and the house full. And they come and open the businesses out of the basements, they're coming in downtown and they do their stuff.
And are some of these businesses professional businesses?
Practically all of them. Practically every one of them professional or retail. So, like for example, our 6 George Street building, we would not have any UPS if the building looked the way it was. I would not have, 14 George Street, if, the building the way it looked, there's no way I would have had a dentist there. And, and the lawyers we have up there. And there's no way I would have had macaroon if that building, and she says that, the macaroon owner on 45 Queen Street, she says, and I didn't use grant for that building. I did use for the other 2 buildings, mind you. And that, there's no way she would have been there had that building didn't look the way it did. It has I can't even stress how much impact it has on the economics. Like people wait sometimes because the building looks nice, they want to come in there. They wouldn't have thought of being here before that. And that's beautiful for what you guys are doing.
Well, thank you for that. And certainly I agree with you that having a nice appearance helps a huge amount to attract people here.
Absolutely, and makes it easy for me as well. It's like when somebody comes to Brampton, I'm a proud Bramptonian. I'm a loyal one. I think everybody knows that, how loyal I'm loyal to the city. And when people come here and they say, hey, this Brampton is looking pretty good actually. I just get a bit of a chin up. It's just kind of nice when I have that. It's it's a pride. I take pride in my city and I love this city and I want to just support it.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Councilor
Mr.
Moore?
Chairman.
Well, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman. Dave, I want to thank you. You're somebody in our city who walks the talk. It doesn't matter how much you were able to secure through the building improvement grant or the facade improvement grant. You spent multiples of that, of your own investment money, upgrading those buildings. So I think probably in relative terms, the amount of incentive that you received from the municipality was very small by comparison. We had a presentation today actually by Anthony Wong, who talked about some of the investment along the Queen Street corridor and the amount of investment we were able to attract because of the tools that are in the toolbox being the community improvement plan, and whether that was the DC incentive, the facade improvement, the building improvement, all of those attracted investment into the downtown. And it is really significant in terms of the number of jobs it creates while the construction is taking place. The rate of return is about 7 years, particularly on the DC incentive. And then there is, in perpetuity, the assessment that you get, whether it's a residential or a commercial unit, from that investment that takes place along the corridor. The important thing, and I think we all need to remember, when there's money in the budget for the facade improvement grant, it's kind of like a date. The owner of the property meets with staff and works through various permutations of what it is that investor wants to do on the property, and they come to an agreement so that we get the right kind of development and the right kind of investment. And so the money might be in the budget for 2017, but not expended until 2018. So it is important to keep it there as a recognition that sometimes it can take, 3 months, sometimes it can take 8 months, or it can take more than a year until all of the fine details are agreed upon. And then there's a process where it has to come to council for approval, and we all know that that's, getting in the queue for a committee of council and to council meetings. So, while there's been reference to 300,000 underspent, there may be ongoing dialogue that's happening today as we speak about accessing some of that funding that looks like it's not spent, but in actual fact is moving towards a partnership, a financial partnership with an investor. So, put that out there, and thank you again for coming.
Thank you. Can I make a couple of comments?
Councilor Medeiros, Dave?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Capel, for coming to speak to the facade program. Can you, and I think Councillor Moore alluded to it, when we give a grant and you receive it and you, I guess for whatever, I guess improvement you make, does that cover all your expenses, or do you have to put in, your own investment?
I'll give an example. The 6 George Street South building, we got grant altogether for inside and outside for about, I think, 60,000 from the city, and we invested $500,000 in it. And quite frankly, it's kind of funny, you guys costed me a lot of money, because my plan was not to do that. My plan was to just paint the building up. It had decent glass, and I said, you know what, just leave it. And then I heard about this grant program. I said, you know what, they gave me 60 grand. I called my contractor up. I said, listen, how much does it cost me to put the new glass in the front? And he comes back and says 120. I said, well, you know what? Okay, done, because it's costing me 60. It was not 120. It ended up going to about 250 altogether at the end of it. Because when you start doing things, you say, you know what, just let's fix this as well, let's do this as well. And you keep on changing and things keep on improving. But yeah, I think altogether in the 3 buildings we spent about close to $1.5 million. And I think the grant I received was about 120 altogether.
So through the chair, and clearly you're in support, but you found that seed money really changed and gave you that incentive to really do something about it.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important to stress that, because I would submit to my colleagues, and certainly, and I understand Councillor Dillon's when he talks about around the city, but usually the core in every major urban city across the world, I can tell you, especially in Europe, major cities, they always have difficulty because of the challenges of doing business downtown. And downtown core, as you spoke to it, I'm very proud to be one of the downtown councillors, because there is something unique and special about your downtown, that historic, so I'm very supportive of the facade program, and I would almost estimate that, if we did have some budgetary options, that even more so, but I guess waiting back, and we're doing all this other work that we're doing, but I just think it's so important that we really build our core, and, I thank you, as Councillor Moore said, you walk the talk, and I thank you for all that, and thank you for alluding to us how important the facade program is.
Thank you.
Councillor Dillon?
Thank you. Just a quick comment as well. A quick question for staff in regards to what Mr. Couple is saying. What is the downtown, do you have numbers on the downtown vacancy rate versus the rest of the city?
And I don't know if we have that comparison. We can get that for you.
I think there's always individual exceptions, and again, I'm really glad that Mr. Couple has taken advantage of it. I just want to make note that just to the facade program itself, like again, I haven't been able to see any measurements on how well it's done overall. I still go around downtown, I see empty shops. I go around, unless I'm mistaken, if somebody can correct me, I go around the rest of the city. I don't see that many empty shops. They seem like they're doing okay. We've invested so much money. We're talking about CIP today, the DCIP, the Development Charge Incentive Program. Why is downtown struggling when we've pumped so much into it? We've moved City Hall here about almost 30 years ago. We've have so many incentive programs, so many funds, so many grants. Why isn't it doing well? That's a question you don't have to answer. But in my opinion, the fact that we have a university coming, eventually we'll have LRT coming, and the fact that we have the revitalization around the hospital, that's what's really going to invigorate and revitalize and instigate a lot of success in terms of businesses in downtown. And so again, I'm really glad that it's helped some people. Somebody, and I don't mean any disrespect to it, somebody used a couple of years ago the phrase lipstick on a pig. In my opinion, and in my own personal opinion, I think we're going to see a lot more coming to downtown in the future, and I really want you to be successful, and I want everybody to be successful, but I don't think our success hinges on the facade program, because I haven't seen been able to quantification for it, and so again, just my personal opinion, just wanted to add that point. But again, I think you're going to see even more growth downtown as soon as those 3 major ticket items come in the next few years. Thank
Perhaps,
you.
Dave, we can invite you back to a committee meeting at one point where you can explain to us what the difficulties or the pluses and minuses of being in a downtown compared to other places. It's not for today, this is a budget, we're only talking about the facade program, but it might be a good opportunity for us to hear from you on that. So, thank you very much for your delegation.
Thank you, folks. Thank you.
Okay, our next delegation is Chris Bejar, co-chair of Citizens for Better Brampton. Welcome, Chris.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, councillors, and city staff. My name is Chris Baynar, co-chair of Citizens for a Better Brampton. I would like to announce that my co-chair, Doug Bryden, couldn't rearrange his schedule to delegate this afternoon, so I would like to ask for an extension to my 5 minutes delegation, if that's okay. I'm probably about 8 minutes at most.
Somebody want that? Okay. All in favor? That carries.
Thank you.
8 minutes and I cut you.
8 or 9 minutes.
Hey, no, you're 9.
And on the stopwatch. Okay, so 2 weeks ago, Doug and I participated in the city's latest strategic planning workshop, Future Ready Brampton, an inspiring event hosted by world-renowned urban planner Larry Beasley. CFBB contributed positively to this initiative by submitting over 40 ideas and comments as a group, as well as at least 20 individual submissions from group members. This strategic process generated many positive ideas and visions for our city from many proud, diverse, and hardworking citizens. Unfortunately, one important detail was missing from this grand plan and vision, really the funding. Not just funding from federal or provincial governments, but contributions from the investors and landlords of our city, who are benefiting financially but not contributing to the future prosperity of our city. A funding issue that CFBB believes is one of the most important challenges facing the city moving forward. Now, we all want and support projects like the University and the Innovation Center, recreational facilities, libraries, parks, the Riverwalk, desperately needed additional health care. These initiatives are for the benefit of all residents, but cannot continue to be funded on the shoulders of just the property taxpayers with the projected city tax hikes of 3.7, 5.4, and 4.6%. Those are 3 to 4 times the rate of inflation. As Jim McCarter boldly stated in his financial review in 2015, the more residents we have, the higher operational costs there will be. There is a direct relationship, and we need to find a way to somehow mitigate those costs. We are actually encouraged that in this year's budget there is funds allocated towards a secondary unit task force, something that we believe there needs to be a little bit more clarification as to what the mandate of this task force will be, how many staff will be allocated to this project, and what goals they will accomplish. This is a good first step in our opinion, but we need much more. Back in 2011, the Liberal government introduced and passed Bill 140, becoming law on January 1st, 2012. A bill that unfairly passed the burden onto municipalities to allow all secondary units. This bill passed without any financial or legislative assistance from the province to help out municipalities. As a result, cities like Brampton, with a disproportionate percentage of residential tax-based revenue, in our opinion, have been negatively impacted. Honest, hardworking property taxpayers who do not have a secondary unit have been left unfairly subsidizing all the landlords, investors, tenants who buy this bill. With one of the fastest growing populations in Canada, we simply have not received our fair share of funding for infrastructure, healthcare, and transit to support the influx of all the new residents. What's concerning is that we don't even know what our true population is, or how many unregistered secondary units there are. Is it 30,000? Is it more? A fellow advocacy group, Brampton Beats, was quoted in the Toronto Star back in June stating that we could possibly have 100,000 more residents than what our official population states. How are we to plan a future-ready city when we don't even know what our population is? Unfortunately, many landlords and investors have taken advantage of this legislation. They have been circumventing the existing rules and bylaws of our city to create wealth for themselves, while honest, hardworking taxpayers who do not have a secondary unit must try and budget for the significant property tax hikes. This is simply not sustainable and it's not fair. For the record, I, CFBB members, strongly believe that secondary units are a vital and necessary form of affordable housing in our city. There is no argument here. Hopefully we can all agree that secondary units need to be safe, properly registered, and somehow contribute to the future prosperity of our city. Bill 140 needs to be amended to ensure that these basic conditions are met and that municipalities have the powers to enforce or create additional revenues. Let me highlight an actual example documented by one of our members, recent experience with a neighbor's home. I believe that several councillors, city staff, and bylaw enforcement have all been made aware of this particular situation. Even though everything was reported, pictures taken, many emails sent, and calls made, this secondary unit, to our knowledge, still has not been properly registered, and there has not been one extra tax dollar collected from the property owners over the past year. If any council member would want if any council member would want the exact address with copies of all emails, we can make them available confidentially. So let's review this example. This 3,000 square foot single family residential home in the McLaughlin and Queen area of our city was sold by the original owner in the fall of 2016 for close to $800,000. The new owners moved in December 2016 and immediately began work on widening the driveway without a permit and to an illegal size. A wider driveway that contributes to storm runoff and detracts from the streetscape of the neighborhood. Work immediately began on digging a below-grade entrance to the garage into the basement without a permit. Our member had extreme difficulty getting bylaw to respond to the calls and emails regarding the digging of the entrance, as most of the work was done on weekends when inspectors are not working. As a result of the complaints, the new owners decided to sell a few months later, discouraged that the existing neighbors were, quote, not cooperating. The home sold again on May 17th, 2017 for close to $1 million. What I would like to also highlight is that the province collected $35,000 in land transfer tax revenue from the two sales transactions over the 12-month period, whereas the city got zero. We were informed that two brothers jointly bought the home. We were informed that two brothers and their wives, one young child, and the parents of the brothers live in the upper portion of the home. That's 7 residents. We were informed that there was at least 5 renters in the basement, 2 young couples and one of their sisters. That's 5 more residents. 5 cars parked in the driveway. Recently, 1 car was parking on the front lawn and began driving over the adjoining neighbor's lawn to exit the driveway. To our knowledge, the secondary unit still has not been registered with the city. Property taxes, as per the MLS listing, were only $5,854 for the year, working out to just around $487 per resident. So we have 12 residents living in the home. This could easily, become 15 if more children are born, or the families, to the families who live in the upper levels of the home. 12 residents living in the home with the property taxes collected based on a single-family residential assessment. How many times is something like this being duplicated across the city? As well, investors' landlords are collecting rental income that in many cases is not accurately reported on their income tax returns, further compounding tax revenue loss. Tenants help pay the mortgage. We all get that, as well as help offset the cost of homeownership by providing landlords the ability to mitigate these significant tax hikes. How about our seniors living on fixed incomes? Or couples who have a large mortgage and are trying to put their kids through university? How are they expected to cope with these increases? Okay, that's water.
Chris, are you gonna bring this back to relate to budget?
Yes, I am.
'Cause I know the issue is very strong with the water.
Trust me, it's coming back. So ask yourselves, is this a sustainable path for Brampton's future? We just completed a process to make Brampton #future ready. What we also need is a workshop titled Future Prosperity, if we are serious about solving this problem. Thank you. We cannot keep counting on the property taxpayers who do not have a secondary unit to keep subsidizing the city initiatives with tax increases double or triple the rate of inflation. We do have a potential solution that could create a new tax rate for all new residential dwellings with a secondary unit. We would need to place the responsibility on the homeowner to prove to the city that they do or do not have an unregistered unit, not the other way around. New categories could be created like single detached secondary, semi-detached secondary, or townhome secondary, all with slightly higher tax rates. The goal will be to collect an additional $200 to $300 in annual tax revenues from these income-producing residential properties. Imagine how an additional $250 in annual fees for every secondary unit in the city could contribute to city coffers. If a landlord collects $1,000 a month for a secondary unit, that's $12,000 per year. Would it not be reasonable for that same landlord to pay $250 annually to help offset those higher operational costs that his tenants will create? To contribute to the prosperity of our city, to help property taxes keep in line with the rate of inflation? We think so hopefully council does as well. Now, that's that topic. Now, I don't have time to
Chris,
read
you
my...
have like 45 seconds. Can you
Okay, sorry.
And that's 2 minutes over what you said.
Okay. There's no more, I don't think there's any delegations here. So if you can allow me the time here. Now, we don't have time to read the budget delegation from last year, so I'll highlight just one paragraph. Last year I stated, and I'll quote, "We need this council to aggressively call out the province for our poor planning of healthcare in Brampton and to immediately call on the province to begin the RFP process for a fully funded Phase 2 of Peel Memorial that will include a second ER and a minimum of 200 inpatient beds." So that's what I said last year. All the recent media attention has clearly showed that Brampton has been neglected by this province. The delivery of quality healthcare is a provincial responsibility and not the municipalities. It is not a need, not a want. It is a need, not a want. So why did we as Bramptonians need to convince the province? Why did we need to commit a $60 million tax levy so that healthcare could return to the closed Peel Memorial site when data shows this was desperately needed? Why did the province not recognize the shortage of beds and lack of ER capacity when for years advocacy groups such as ours and experts said we needed them? All of the recent media attention has clearly highlighted that we simply need more beds and ER capacity for a fast-growing city. It is our opinion that the provincial government has been neglecting the city of Brampton and the quality of healthcare that this city desperately needs.
Chris, I'm going to ask you to summarize. You're well over 10
Yeah,
minutes now.
okay. And this is an important thing.
It's all important. We understand that, but...
Therefore, we are suggesting that Council draft a resolution demanding that once the tax levy concludes in 2019, the $60 million collected from the hardworking property taxpayers be reimbursed by the province. Our suggestion is not that far-fetched. If Northwest Toronto residents didn't have to pay a tax levy for the $300 million redevelopment of Willem Oster's Etobicoke General Campus, so why did then Brampton property taxpayers have to pay a tax levy to bring back healthcare at Peel Memorial? How is that okay? Once reimbursed, the $60 million could then be used to help offset future property tax increases or be used for city building initiatives like the University and Innovation Center, substantially decreasing the proposed tax hikes. I could go on with other things, but I'll stop it there. Those are two important...
Thank you, Chris. I have a few speakers. Councillor Bowman.
Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Chris, thanks for coming in. I know well the story of the underground digging and what we had to go through to finally get somebody over there. And then, of course, it was sold. But I think you hit on some good points that probably a lot of people don't understand, and that is the driveway widenings. Everybody just thinks, hey, what am I doing? I'm just going to put an extra car in there. But it does have a big impact on the groundwater, the water flow, the wastewater that goes in, the treatment, the cost, all of that. It is a critical problem. We have put money in the budget to go after that problem. And you're right, the province does need to change something in order for us to change the onus on the homeowner to prove to us that he does not have a second unit, rather than us have to prove that he does. And it's going to come to a head at some point. And I've mentioned this a couple of times. We did have a fire about a year and a half ago, and they went into a semi-detached home, and they found there were 17 people living in it. Luckily, nobody was hurt, nobody was killed. But you can well imagine if that had been a catastrophe, the province would be jumping all over this thing. So hopefully we can change that without having to do it. But I am happy, as you are, that we have put the money in the budget to start addressing this issue. Thanks.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bowman is really kind of, first of all, can you leave us a copy of your
I'll email
presentation if there were things that you didn't get to because of the time restriction? But Councillor Bowman really speak to the need for really a provincial property tax reform. There's things that we're paying for from their local property tax, municipal property taxes, that shouldn't be on the property tax. And we know that. It's a big job. It's kind of like, cleaning up the environment. It's tough. But if we don't start somewhere, the basement apartments or the secondary units are not the problem. What is the problem is that we are not collecting the money to support the pressure that those extra folks cause on our programs and services, both at the city and the region. And we don't get any extra assessment for them. MPAC is not the solution. I mean, the province has taken the position that, well, if homes in an area have a number of secondary units in them, then the value of that home goes up, therefore the assessed value goes up, therefore the municipality gets more money. That's not how it's working out at all. And the second units, you know, the need to create the bylaws so that they can be legalized is so that people feel less the need to sort of stay underground. We know that there's a lot of numbers not captured in the census for
Councillor, can I ask you
population.
to bring it back to budget again?
Bring it
This is
back
about
to
budget, not about
budget.
just.
I will, actually, I will do that.
Hate to cut you off, but.
Because
it's
the
a good
delegate
discussion
asked the
probably.
question around the secondary suites task force. And I think part of the work of that task force is not just bringing them into compliance, making them safe. It does need to be about collecting data and intelligence so that we can effectively advocate. So I'm not sure where we are in the development of that. I know you needed the budget to be passed so that you had the resources and the staff to start the work of the task force. But it really does need to be in the context of a bigger objective. Certainly the safety, the bringing them into compliance, making sure people have safe homes to live in, but the bigger picture needs to be how do we do more than just nudge the province or irritate the province with the fact that this is a problem for local municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bovieri, as it relates to budget?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank Chris for the suggestion, and I just want to ask staff quickly, can the city create a new tax rate for homes with multi-units? Who would know that?
Through the chair, actually, the tax class would actually be created through the MPAC, and the city wouldn't have control over that.
So can we put a motion together, a resolution, and to reflect Chris's comments? And I agree with it. I know there's a lot of people in Brampton that actually are investors. They buy. I just found out one person I know owns 5 houses, and they have 2 units, and they rent the places out. So it's not. So there is a lot of people making a lot of money, a lot of investors, and I think that the city should be getting a little piece of that. So can we put a motion together,
The
Mr.
clerk
Chair?
just advised me that probably the best place for this would be at committee, and then we can do that recommendation at committee.
So we
This
can
is
refer-
budget, this is about the
So
money.
let's
and the
refer
dollars.
this issue to the
You
committee.
don't have to
and-
refer, you can bring it up at the committee meeting.
Sure.
And we
Okay.
can have that discussion.
Make a comment, please?
Will you take less than a minute?
No, this is something, this is not going to be solved overnight. Like I said, the secondary unit task force is a good first step in addressing the issue. But yeah, we need to do something because, our city is at a disadvantage, and all these grand projects and initiatives are going to be, hard to achieve if we don't do something.
I think we all agree with that. We were limited over the years to what we can and can't do, and now we have some more things that we can do, so that's good. Thank you, Chris, for your delegation. Is there anybody else from the public who wishes to delegate on the budget tonight? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to I have a motion, thank you, Peter. I have a motion moved by Councillor Moore and Councillor Bovieri to receive the delegations of Chuck Scott, Dave Capel, and Chris Benzer. All in favor? That carries. And I have a motion here to receive the CAO's and Treasurer's presentation at the beginning, moved by Councillor Willen, seconded by Councillor Medeiros. All in favor? That carries. So we're going to now move to I believe, Mr. Clerk, is the Budget Committee minutes, item 6.1. Any questions or comments on those? These are the minutes of the November 27th and 28th. Councillor Dorr. Yep. Yeah, this is open for comments on the budget for the last few days.
There's a few issues that I do have and or comments I want to make and some questions as well. Can you, sorry, this is a question to staff. In the budget, when we talk about the tax breakdown, it shows that residential tax income is 76.37% and commercial is 16%. In my opinion, this is too much collected by residential, and you compare it to other municipalities. Residential, like for example, the City of Toronto, they have 31%, which is collected by residential, and it's flipped. 69 is through commercial office. Is there a strategy or plan in place or a long-term goal to reduce that number? From what I understand, if I'm not mistaken, the average is much lower. I won't give you an exact number because I don't recall it, but it should be much lower in my opinion. So I'm not sure who to direct that question to. Perhaps to Harry, or maybe to Mr. Sutton.
Sorry, through the chair, I'll answer part of the question, and maybe I'll hand off part of the answer to
Sorry,
Mr. Darling.
can I just add one thing as well, just to that, because I'm looking at some of the questions that were sent to staff, and there's something that stands out. There's zero cuts that we have, and so I'm just wondering, just tying that into the budget, it kind of stood out that we're not making any cuts, but we have so much coming in from the residential portion, and add to that. Well, I'll get to the other points after, but if you can just respond.
So as I mentioned through the chair, I'll answer part, and then maybe I can have Mr. Darling answer the other part of that. So as we saw in the long-term financial master plan, the City of Brampton, in terms of its tax ratio from residential to non-res, is for the most part in line with many other communities in Ontario. However, when it comes to as you move in closer to Toronto, that ratio actually begins to improve for those municipalities. So the ratio for the City of Toronto, City of Mississauga, is definitely a better ratio than it is for say the situation as it is in Brampton. But we are very similar in line with Markham and other communities on the outskirts of GTA as well. In some cases, much better than other places in Ontario.
Yeah, because I would assume this to, I guess, past planning in terms of overdevelopment on the residential portion of it. And so Mississauga is not, I think it's just as we both border the city of Toronto. I think they might be might be a little bit, have a closer border, but I guess for a future discussion, maybe it's something we need to look at. That how do we really shrink that? And I know that involves, I would assume, increasing the activity rate, which is our jobs to population ratio, and getting more of those jobs in. So it's just that was an observation I had. A couple of other things. There's I'm looking at some of these stats. We have 21, if I'm not mistaken, 21.6 million in increased salaries for this budget. Is that correct? So the overall budget increase was 46.1, and out of that was 46.1 million, and 21.6 was just to salary, wages, and benefits for new and existing staff resources.
Through the chair, so in terms of the overall increase in the salaries for 2018, what we're talking about is, in terms of our base operating increase, about $9.9 million increase in base adjustments on staff.
So, but because I was CC'd in one of these emails, and one of the responses given to one of the questioners was that from the city that, and I'll quote again, the 2018 operating budget increase of $46.1 million includes $21.6 million related to salaries, wages, and benefits.
Yes, that would be correct. So that would have been confirmed through our team. That's correct.
So one of the concerns I have is that we've actually, one of the things a lot of people, whether not my opinion, the opinion of a lot of the residents, the constituents, was that they wanted to see a lot of that bloat gone. And I think when there was, this is a word that they used actually, when there was dozens of employees let go. I'm not sure what the number was. So if we let all those employees go, what necessarily is the reasoning for an additional $21.6 million in increased salaries for the 2018 budget?
Hillsline?
Let's be clear on the base services. So if we were providing the services year over year, we had a reduction, and I'm going to go to it here. So on the base services, so last year's services, if we compare to this year, we actually had a reduction of 1.3% on the levy. So that's a combination of revenues and expense reduction that we were achieving. The main increase in salaries related to new or enhanced services. So all those services that the treasurer went through, the fire service, the transit service, library services enhancement, the bylaw enforcement and planning that went into it, make up the bulk of that 21 million. So we did save quite a bit on the base services, and you're seeing that here.
What would define base services?
Well, the newer or enhanced, the treasurer went through all the newer enhanced.
No, I'm just speaking just for the information of residents so they know what base services are.
So everything that we provided last year, plus handling the growth, we've actually seen an overall reduction on the levy that you see here of 1.3%. And then as the treasurer presented, I could go through all the slides again, where he talked about increased fire services, how many staff we needed for that, increased transit services and operators, the staff we needed for that, the increase in the second units that we need in planning and in bylaw, and then the library services make up the bulk of that.
Fine. And so the reason why I'm asking these questions is because I've been contacted by a number of constituents, and so the concern is that, or maybe you can possibly identify areas where we may not have cut, but were there areas that staff was looking to maybe cut or reduce costs?
Through you, Chair, again.
Sorry, because there was no services are being cut or reduced.
Through you, Chair, again, when we presented at the beginning, we were working as a team, and the reason why we were able to maintain the services is the efficiencies that we found within. There was a slide that I presented that showed a $4.6 million reduction to the bottom line, as well as we built additional capacity in the organization of about $7 million. I'm just going to go through the beginning here. So if you look at 2018, we're actually, the transformation reduced the bottom line by $4.6 million for 2018, as well as we built additional capacity, and therefore we didn't have to cut any services. And we were able to handle the growth. If you look at our population growth over the last year's another 10,000, there was a lot of activity that we had to handle. So we were able to handle that, all that capacity and additional volume without cutting any services, and still saw a reduction in base services.
Right, and so I think that's excellent, but what I'm looking at, is there any areas, maybe even not now or in the future, that where we could look to reduce costs or cut, or that's in your vision right now?
Through you, I mean, we've done a core service. We looked at all our different services. That would really be up to council. Did you want to reduce service levels that exist in the corporation, or would you want to cut services? That's something we could look at next year.
Right. So just moving along, and I appreciate your responses. Thank you. Another clarification I just want to get is that we saw that the infrastructure gap was, I think we were told it was 1.2 billion out of the McCarter report, but one of the slides says 600 million. So I'm just really want to get clarification on what exactly it is what McCarter said, and what the, I guess in terms of staff's perspective, what is, actually our infrastructure gap? Maybe you can just, for the information of the residents and councilors, let us know.
So through the chair, so two things. Number one, Mr. McCarter's report was several years ago. As the city continues to grow, the asset base continues to grow, and therefore the need for replacement when the timing of those things, when new assets come into the 10-year projection for replacement, that gets picked up in these numbers. We're changing, the amount of funding that has been going towards these, towards infrastructure has increased, so that changes the amount in terms of the gap as well. I believe Mr. McCarter was looking a lot towards depreciation, where in the numbers that you've seen in the presentation here are based on working with departments in terms of what the forecasted numbers are. So again, depreciation being backward-looking, and the numbers that we're using here through our corporate asset management group, working with the departments to project what the replacement costs might be.
So what is the actual number?
So the shortfall is 600,000.
600 million.
600 million,
right.
Sorry, over 10 years.
Appreciate that.
Yes.
Just a couple, I'm going to finish with a couple of comments then as well. Could even be questions actually. When I got on council, I think 2014, I was really impressed with the way we had moved towards engaging our residents in terms of in dealing with the budget per se. I was kind of surprised, I was kind of caught off guard right now that we really didn't have all of that engagement. We had the telephone town halls, we had the town hall on Rogers. There's a lot of public engagement. And when I had asked staff what our actual engagement was, I was told that was youth survey, citizen satisfaction survey, Parks and Rec master plan, industry meetings, transit specific events, active transportation master plan, Queen Street transit master plan, and the planning vision as well, which I think were all excellent. And I thought we got some really positive feedback, but I don't believe that in any of these the actual budget was provided to the residents. So what was I just want to know what type of input do we have directly from the residents related to this specific budget in 2018? Because I've had a lot of people who themselves have called me and said they really didn't know what was going on. And obviously I don't think we can reach every person. I think as councillors we tried as much as we can. And so since we had no town halls, can we gauge how much website traffic there was, or whether it was how many additional calls? Because I think we track specific types of calls to our call center in regards to the budget, or can we use numbers like those and compare them to the past couple of years where we had those town halls, those telephone town halls? So essentially, can we quantify how much more engaged or how engaged residents were? Because I think I heard last week that this is one of the most transparent town halls, but I have residents telling me that they don't believe it was that transparent or that they were engaged.
Through the budget chair, specific to budget, we did do a number of things. We did the Let's Connect 2018 budget strategy. We placed ads on transit shelters, on buses. We had an online form where people could, where we obviously sent out communication announcing when the budget documents were available, when the budget meetings were taking place. There was a online form where people could provide comments on the budget 2018. We had Facebook videos and clips provided, so where we had city staff respond to the most common questions on the budget. We had Twitter feeds. I don't have specific numbers in terms of the impressions that this made in terms of the public input, but there are a number of steps taken, and as we discussed in
earlier as well, the public engagement through all those other forums inform the budget throughout the year.
Dr. Dillon, if I can add to that, and I had asked staff to make sure they included this in there, because if you recall, when we did those teleconferencing budgetary, whatever we called them, we determined, we had a report come back to us, and we had determined that they didn't work. And they didn't work because the calls we were getting weren't related to the budget, they were related to a lot of other things, nothing wrong with those type of things. So we as a council decided not to do that and move into another form. I didn't do the first budget, but I did the second, and I wanted to create more opportunities for the public, and that's why staff did some of these things. Perhaps what we need more is be a little more specific about the exact ones. We also, every one of our workshops that we had that we were talking about budget, we also, that's open for the public to come. I know, sometimes we had 1 or 2 people come, and that was all it. But all that process started, I'd say back in January, February, right through to today, which allowed the public to have a say. You can't have a final document and throw it in front of the public in January, but you build up to that, and then you have your final documents and open it up to the public. So personally, I think this is being more opportunities for the public, whether or not, the old saying, you can take the horse to water, but you can't make them drink. We open it up for them and let them do it. We've had some good conversations, some good people that have had some good ideas and things like that come through for us.
Right, and like I said, I think I do recall when the discussion was to not go with those, but in my opinion, I think it might have been good to at least wait out the term and go, and continue those on. I thought they were pretty good, just because I think the first year was very successful. We might have dropped a little bit, but I think we needed to give it a fair chance, and so. Those are all the questions I really have, and now, so can we comment on the we're commenting on the minutes now, right?
The minutes are in front of you, yep.
So there's a couple of comments I just want to make on the minutes, just to let whoever is interested in knowing, I guess, in terms of the minutes, I will be putting forth or having a revote on the motion I had submitted on November 28th in terms of a seniors bus pass, and so what that pass essentially, that motion essentially was to reduce the monthly bus pass rate from $52 to $15, and I think the clerk's pulling it up, and essentially any shortfall would have been absorbed by the facade program, which we were having a discussion about earlier. So their budget rollover for 2018 from 2017 is $300,000. And so $75,000 per year would have funded it for 4 years, and any shortfall after that would have been absorbed through any future transit growth. So just for the sake of transparency, that's the way I'm going to be putting that forward. I will be supporting that. The Brampton Beast portion, I think I've been consistent from the beginning, and so I'm going to be voting no on that. And I don't believe the $4 bus fare. I think that a lot of the residents have come to me, particularly the past couple of days, and said they're not in favor of that. I've been pretty clear, especially when I put forward this motion for the bus pass, that people are struggling right now. Every penny counts for them. The Peel poverty statistics show that majority of Brampton falls within red, meaning they're falling under that poverty line. And I think when we have $21 million of addition to staff salary, when we get car allowances, we have that luxury. A lot of the seniors don't, a lot of people don't. I've had the opportunity to ride in transit as well, and it's getting tough for people. Affordability is a major issue, whether it's car insurance, whether it's buying groceries, whether it's filling up gas. And I don't think 25 cents is a lot, but I think it goes a long way for a lot of our riders. And so I'll be voting against that. And the salary portion, I've been informed by the clerk that I won't support that either. I don't think we can support $21 million in new salary for our employees when we led by example this year by cutting some of those costs. And so just for the sake of transparency and being upfront, and I think I've been consistent, and so I thought I would inform whoever's watching on YouTube or whoever's sitting here.
So Councillor, we will go through, we'll bring
Yeah,
up
when the time comes.
those motions,
Yeah.
we will go through them and you can vote.
Just
at
so
that
I don't gotta explain it, I thought I
that's
would
okay.
just let everybody know
All
now.
right. Councillor Pelisi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, it's an election year. I wanted to, I haven't been around for a little while, but I wanted to take the opportunity to thank the commissioners for sitting down with me the other day and kind of walking me through what I had missed. A lot that's been said so far, I'm not sure that I haven't been caught up on that as of yet. Any other motions or that have been put on the floor and may have failed, I'm not sure. So I kind of would like to see them if
They will
possible.
come up.
Okay,
And
great.
there's an opportunity to vote again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The pre-budget discussions with the questions from the councillors, I thought was fantastic again this year, and I'm glad that the budget chair yet again requested that be put in place for this year's budget. And I did want to talk a little bit about the awareness and getting it out to connecting with people. I've said it before, and I was always a strong believer that we didn't give the teletown halls the fair shake. I supported that, and although it was costly up front, I thought it was going to be beneficial further down the line. But and I may have missed it, if somebody could let me know. Usually we have somebody from communications kind of walk us through the impressions that we hit through budget. Did I miss that, or will that come after? Can anybody? Usually we get communications to come down and just walk us through everything we did through this process and the impressions that were hit through, Twitter, Facebook, how many people we reached, YouTube.
We didn't do that. We did that after the last time. We didn't do it
comes
at budget.
after?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we could ask for that, and I guess get some more
No,
details.
if it's coming after, then that would be, obviously we need to formulate and gather all the information. So if that's coming after, that's great.
When I mean after, I don't mean today. I mean at another.
No, I'd rather 45 minutes. Okay, does that give you enough time? That's all I wanted.
Aaron's up
Thank
there
you.
pulling
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Spolieri?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and yeah, just first of all, I'd like to really recognize staff for doing a great job in this budget. I think it's a very responsible budget. We should acknowledge the fact that I think it's 1.9% of this budget that goes towards reserves for replacement and repair. 2%? Oh, I was just 1 point off.
Close.
Yeah, close. So that's a big number. It's so more of the money, more of this increase goes towards future investments than actual spending today. Generally speaking, I don't like to get into trying to put something else into the budget because it only creates a chain reaction around the table. I found from the past that everybody has a little pet issue. I know Councillor Dillon, he's looking for a little bit of money for the seniors passes for the transit. I kind of support him on that because I talked to the seniors who are really struggling and they're stuck in the houses, and a more affordable pass would really get them out and about, and it would help them a lot. But not all seniors need it. There are a lot of seniors who can well afford it, and if we ever consider a program, I think we should only make it available to the people who really need it, and not to all the seniors that most don't need. Now, saying that, I was trying to find a way to come up with a bit of money to try to make a program for these seniors that need it. And as you recall, last week not last week, just when we did the budget, I raised the issue about that the mayor's complement was I believe that there's funding for a person that that is no longer with the city, and the mayor's complement has actually been reduced, but yet the budget for the mayor's budget was not adjusted to reflect that that adjustment. So I like to suggest that perhaps, and we can get a report at a later time, that we can implement a program for the needy seniors and use and clause some of that those funds needed from the mayor's budget, which she no longer needs the whole amount. I don't believe, just staff can clarify, verify that the amount in the budget it was for 7 compliments, whereas now there's only, I believe there's 6 people in that complement. So can you, through the chair, verify whether the budget reflects a complement of 7 or a complement of 6 people in the mayor's budget?
I'm not staying on here. Through the chair, so I just, in terms of the budget, it would reflect the complement that was approved and endorsed by this council earlier in the term. So there was a report that went to council, and council did approve the complement for the mayor's office. And effectively, as with all divisions, all departments in the corporation, there are people that leave from time to time, and it does take some time to recruit and fill those positions. In some cases, the departments are determining whether the same position or same job description for those people is still the same as it was before. So in terms of the strategy that the mayor's office is going through, the mayor and her staff, that's really up to, that decision is up to them. But the budget is still there. We have not reduced the budget in 2018 to reflect effectively what we consider a gapping situation.
Okay. Well, and I think that, and I appreciate what you said, and perhaps this is not the time to do it. Perhaps we need to refer this matter to a future committee to just to see the justification of what is really needed in that complement. I know that it's been 6 months, and that person who left back in the spring hasn't been replaced, so I would have figured that if there was a real and urgent need for that person, he would have been replaced by now. So I would like to refer this matter to the next committee meeting so that we can discuss. And I did get the job description of the mayor's staff that I had asked for last year, and so did, I believe, Mr. Bryden had asked, and we finally got it, but it's all dated. It's dated 2015. It hasn't been updated, and I think that I believe that it's time we review it. So I'd like to, Mr. Chairman, refer this.
Can you put something on in writing so we know what we're referring, what we're asking?
Referring the mayor's budget to the next committee meeting for review, and possibly free up some funds for Gurpreet's request for providing
we can have the
break.
clerk, I think Charlotte might have written something out, so we can have the clerk look at that, and we'll come back to you if you want.
Great. Thank you.
Rather than taking it right now and trying to work it out, we'll go on to our next speaker.
Okay.
Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like some clarification on what Councillor Dillon's intentions are this evening as it relates to the vote on the seniors transit.
We're going to go through every one of those votes that we did through the budget one at a time, and we'll be voting at that time. Okay? And then Councillor Dillon, if you want to speak to it, can do that, or anybody else.
But the motion was a motion to refer it back to staff to report back to a future meeting. So we're going to vote on whether or not to refer it back to staff.
Can we wait until we have that in front of us? Because I said before, we're going to go through every one of these motions, so that then we'll have an opportunity to debate them if you want to
Oh,
debate
okay.
them, or anything, rather than jump back and forth. It'll,
No, that's
it won't
fine.
screw me up, but it might screw the clerk up.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Mayor Jeffrey.
So thank you, Chair. Before I begin, I just wanted to also thank staff for all the work that they've been doing for months. I mean, I think we began this budget in the beginning of the summer, and certainly they've spent all of November trying to answer our questions, so I really appreciate it. And putting this book together and seeing everybody else's questions, I thought was really helpful, so thank you very much. And having that in advance really, I think, all gave us all the same kind of information at the same time, so thank you. I want to thank you, Chair Gibson, for taking on the challenge of becoming our chair again. It's a thankless job with no special perks, lots of headaches, so thank you for doing that.
Provided me cookies.
Oh,
Made me
cookies.
fat
Okay,
again.
well, that's not a high price. I think we can afford that. And in case I forget, happy birthday, Mr. Sutton. So, this is not a good way to spend your birthday. You need to find better ways to spend your birthday. So, Mr. Chair, until you get the referral, I will speak to the issue that Councillor Spovieri has raised again. And I appreciate that he's trying to be helpful to his colleague. But I think at the end of the day, the intention to take money from my budget really makes my job a lot harder. The position's only been vacant 2 months. And during that time, I've traveled to New York, I've helped with the Amazon bid, I've been working on the university, and essentially that person does research from my office. It puts me in a better position to do my job. It's really been a challenge. And I think, one of the things that kind of disturbs me about why this is being raised again is that there was an opportunity to talk to me about this. My door is always open. You can always come and chat with me about this. If you had a problem, you could have come and spoke to me, and if you didn't want to talk to me, you could have asked that question in this budget. You had over a month to do that. Every other department had the luxury of time to respond to those questions that you had, and you could have asked it in pre-budget. Any of those opportunities for all of us to sit down and talk to staff about it. But I understand you didn't attend any of those. So I don't understand why you'd want to make my job harder, to lobby, to push other levels of government, to work with business, to try and find more economic development opportunities in Brampton. So I don't understand the motivation. What I would suggest is that, a report can come back later to take money out of my budget, but if you're feeling that generous, you might want to look at council's budget as well. Maybe there's an opportunity through their staffing, your staffing, to find efficiencies. So I think if we're going to look at my budget, we should really be looking at everybody's as well. But in the interim, I do want to say that I got some questions from Citizens for a Better Brampton about 15 days ago with regards to my budget, wanting to have some answers. And I did make that letter available to everyone on council yesterday because I didn't want to provide that information without council's knowledge. And I think, frankly, the numbers were higher than even I had estimated. And I take my position and my role and my responsibility as mayor very, very seriously. I think I've tried to always act in accordance with the city bylaws and procedures and policies. I've come to council, and I did back in 2015, not necessarily talking about the complement of my office, but the budget, and asking for the flexibility when necessary to work within that framework, and council gave me that flexibility. So I want to just go through some of the things that I did say in that letter to CFBB and to council yesterday. I want to remind everybody that I promised during the election accountability and transparency. And what I did in the first few days of arriving in this office was to put forward a motion which reduced my salary by $50,000 annually for the term of council. This reduction in my salary has delivered approximate savings of $184,050 to date. That's based on the reduction in annual salary of $150,000 Cumulative, along with reduced payroll costs of approximately 22.7%. That's $34,050 cumulatively. As well, when Council made the decision to vote for an increase in 2016, which was a 7.4% increase, I also forgave that, and that saving was $8,376.88. I also want to note that my office has spent less than the previous term's office of the mayor year over year, even as our city grows. We're growing at an extraordinary rate, and you need to have a mayor that is able to act quickly and is nimble. So this, in total, we have spent $262,879 less this term of council than the previous term. As I said, in 2015, back in February, my chief of staff tabled a report at the time talking about past practices of the former mayor having one full-time employee and 4 contract or secondments. We asked council for a flexible model. We were given permission to do that, and in fact, we didn't ask for our budget to be increased. We found offsets that were found within the office. We made it clear that we were going to follow the terms and the conditions of the employees which are contracted, and we would keep within the City of Brampton's policies and practices. The report was discussed by council, all of council, and we agreed to hire, we were given the flexibility to hire additional staff within the approved budget, and we noted that in the 2015 operating budget for the mayor's office, we were actually $83,000 less than the 2014 allocation, which was the result of labor and benefit savings. One of my staff was given a wonderful opportunity to work for the federal government. He started 2 months ago, not 6 months ago. I miss him. My job is harder because I don't have that additional person to help prepare me for meetings with federal, provincial, and other municipal leaders. As your mayor, my job is to represent the city on LUMCO, on the big city mayors, at the Peel Regional Police, many other boards where I need the assistance of someone to help me do my research. I think I do a better job when I have better information. So I'm speaking against the referral, Mr. Chair, and I would like a recorded vote. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Palashi?
Okay, I'm back. Can we, now that we have the referral kind of done up, can we get it read? Can we speak to it?
Okay, I think probably, I was hoping we'd wait until we go through them all, but we'll bring that one forward since it seems to be
Yeah.
the one everyone wants to talk about. I'm going to let this is a motion to refer, is that this? To refer this motion? Okay, can you read that, Mr. Clerk? And when we take a recorded vote, we'll have to stand because we switched positions, so there won't be no buttons.
Can we finish off this issue? I want to speak to it again.
I've been asked if we can put the motion on the floor so everybody can understand it, so we're going to do that first. And then we'll just be speaking to that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the motion is moved by Councillor Sprovieri and seconded by Councillor Paleshi that the following proposal be referred to staff for consideration and a report back to council. And the proposal is that the matter of a program for a transit discount for needy seniors be developed and that necessary funds be allocated from the unused staff component of the Office of the Mayor's budget and/or any unused portion of the council office budget as it relates to communications.
If I may, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
And I just added that last part just because we had recently had a report from Communications suggesting that they would be able to provide us with a little bit more help that we had been lacking. We felt that we had lacked in the past. So if we can quantify that in any way, that's a discussion that I'd like to have at the next meeting to see if we can maybe find some monies there and provide the same amount of relief to whatever initiative. I don't know if Councillor Dillon's initiative is the right way to go. I still need to see that that report, but it's definitely something that if we can find some funding, then whether by way of the mayor's budget or council's budget. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Councillor Spovieri speaking to this motion.
Yes, I am Chairman, and thank you. I totally support the amendment that Councillor Palashi. I believe there's a lot of us councillors that don't use up our budget, so perhaps that could also be tapped into. As far as my motion, Mr. Chairman, I try to be very diplomatic about the whole issue. I didn't really want to get into in a conflict type matter in justifying my motion. I'd just like to say that we received the mayor's job description information just yesterday. It was sent to us by email by the mayor's chief of staff. So when I read this this morning, I printed it off. My assistant and I read it here today, and I find that two of our main staff members, according to the description, are required to assist members of council. It says right here on the job description, and I didn't want to really get into that. We'd never use the mayor's staff for assistance as councillors. The job description does call for that they assist whenever we need assistance, and we have never used. Also, I really have a beef with the director of her department. If you remember, last year, her office issued
Go ahead, point of order, Madam Mayor.
I don't know.
Councillor Spovieri, let the mayor finish.
Yeah.
I'll ask for advice then from our solicitor or the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to remind members of council, if there's any discussion about identifiable individuals, that may be a matter that's more appropriate for closed session.
And there may be names.
You mentioned the position, it's pretty well known.
No, I did mention positions.
Okay, let the clerk finish, please.
By identifying a position for which there's an identifiable individual associated with that position, i.e. an incumbent or a former person that worked in that position, that may be identifying an individual, and there may be more advice that legal services would provide.
I understand, and I appreciate the...
I want to remind everybody, this is a referral back, so it really has no impact on this budget.
That's right,
This is a budget meeting.
Right.
And I specifically said at the beginning, no other items can be added to it.
Right. And I just want to explain why I like this referred, because I really have a problem with the mayor having a separate director of communication, which is not controlled by the corporation or the council. Sometimes some of the releases that come out of the office may not be, this council may not be agreeable to those releases, and I think that we have to really review that position, and that's why I want this to go to the to committee to talk about that. And we can do it in camera if we have to, no problem. I have no problem with that. And so that's why I'm asking that this matter be referred to committee for further discussion, Mr. Chairman.
I think, Councillor, a better way to proceed with this might be just to add it to a committee meeting and have that discussion rather than muddy the waters on this whole budget. It's not a budget impact. So that's my advice, but I don't want to stop anyone from speaking. Councillor Bowman, speaking to the motion.
No, sir, I wanted to speak on something else on the budget, so I'll go back down to
Please come back on. Councillor Medeiros?
Speaking to the motion, it's really unfortunate. We talk about, we're here discussing a budget, and then, we talk about this is almost like theater. And, and it's irresponsible, I will say, Councillor Spovieri, and unfortunately, when we have regional councillors, knowing that we approved an assistance program at the region to help pilot project that we signed up and we made a decision as councillors to go there. So now we want to double dip and sort of say, okay, we'll have that program there, and then if we want you to spend all these staff resources, go into this, and let's study this program here. When we already made a decision at the regional council to subsidize transit for those most needy. Speaking to the referral, so how would you define what would be the most needy? Second, I just find that, again, if you want to run for mayor, run for mayor. This is like to use a budget, to use this opportunity here, to waste time. I would suspect, but the easiest way, if you can, go to the ballot. That's what I ask.
Okay,
No, but I would ask,
don't-
Councillor Spilberg,
don't
I would
debate back
support
and forth.
I would sign your signature when you come in and run against the mayor, if that's your calling, if that's what you want to do. Because I think this is wasting time. People come here to talk about the budget. People come
don't
talk
do
about the budget. You're a regional councillor. You made a decision at the region to look at those most needy. We signed up our transit system to look at a pilot project at the region, and then you come here and do this theater. You did the show. Yes, someone said that election's around the corner, so this is a show. And you waste our time here.
Councillor
And then after
Spilberg,
we
please.
criticize media for writing stuff about, wow, why they always give us negative attention? Because we do these things. These are not things that you do.
Thank you. Councillor Dillon? Oh, sorry, Councillor Moore. Councillor Moore?
Wow.
Speaking to the referral motion.
To the referral motion, I'm not going to support a referral motion on this, and I'm not going to support it when we do the revote on referring it to, so that staff can come back with a report. I don't support a further subsidy for seniors transit in our city. There is already a program for needy seniors. It's called $1 a ride. And we had a report handed out during budget that shows that in Brampton, seniors can travel for $1. In Mississauga, they can travel for $1 on off-peak periods. $4 at York Rapid Transit, $3.50 in Burlington, $3.50 in Oakville. TTC is $2.10, $3 in Hamilton. $1 in Brampton. Any day of the week, any time of the day. Every single senior in our city, there's no means test. They don't have to have the low income cut off to qualify. They simply get a pass. Every single person that gets on transit in our city is subsidized by the taxpayers. So the same taxpayers that you want to provide an additional subsidy to because they're seniors may be property taxpayers. So I guess the question is, do they pay a lower rate for transit and a higher rate on their taxes? Because somebody has to pick up the slack. I made reference during budget deliberations about families that I know that have 3 children getting on a Brampton Transit bus because they have to take the bus to go to secondary school. $105 a month per child that they're paying to get their children to school. So $315 a month. I'm going to say that that is as much a financial strain and a financial hardship on those families as it is for the seniors to have to come up with $1. So, and you are absolutely right, Councillor Medeiros, we fought at the region because there was a program, a pilot program in Mississauga for not just seniors, but for those people who are living on the edges, living in the margins that need a subsidy. And we fought to get it in Brampton, and we got it. And then we fought because we thought that they were charging us too much to administer the program, and we won on that as well. We do remarkable things in this community for our seniors. And yes, some are having hardship, and some will always have hardship. Just like the families that have to put 3 children on the bus to get to high school every single day. And so I'm going to vote against this. And I'm going to ask my colleagues to please consider not even referring it back when we get to do the revote on this. You want to talk about politics, this is sheer unadulterated politics. This is an attempt to buy votes with a certain demographic in our community when there's seniors right across our constituencies that I think if you said to them, do you want an increase in your taxes or do you want to ride a bus for $15 a month? I think I know what the answer is. I've been around this game long enough.
Hey, Councillor Dillon?
Listen,
I'm sorry.
seniors
Finish.
are seniors in this city, and So what do you mean seniors don't vote? Of course seniors
Councillor
vote.
Spovieri, please don't interrupt. No, you can't. Please don't interrupt.
No, really?
You can put
We
your
are
name in the board, you
subsidizing
can't interrupt.
every single person. If 100% of everybody who got on the bus, whether they were seniors, children, or youth, if they paid full fare, they still wouldn't cover the cost of running transit in our city. So we can't sit a committee this afternoon and pat our transit director on the back for doing such a wonderful job, and wow, we've got, unprecedented growth in our ridership across the city. It's still not paying for itself, and wouldn't if everybody, even if everybody paid the full fare. It's one of those things that as you're running a city, you have to do. We subsidize recreation programs, and every recreation program is subsidy. There is not a single municipally run program that makes money. It's not the business that we're in. Thank you.
You done?
Done. Was that budget related for you?
Councillor Dillon, I didn't want to cut you off. I cut you off last time. I thought you were done. Councillor Dillon.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We're in the business to serve our residents. And you know what, I really appreciate Councillor Spovieri's intentions to support what I had set out was to, just a lot of talking going around. I'll wait 1 minute. Can we have one conversation?
Yeah, no, just wait. The clerk is just confirming the motion. I'll let you start over if you like, Councillor Dillon.
Yeah, we'll let him finish.
Waiting for you guys. Okay? No, it's okay. I didn't want Councillor Dillon to be interrupted, so. Go ahead, Councillor Dillon.
Oh, thank you. To the Chair, we're in the business to serve people. We're not in the business to make profit. And so the report came out on March 3rd, and it outlined what the cost to go to a Calgary model would be. And so in Calgary, they pay $95 per year. What that equals is about $8 a month. For us to go to $8 a month, it would cost the city $150,000 a year. I'm not recommending we go to $8 a month. I'm saying approximately double that, which is about $15 a month, which is about $75,000 a year. Also, you want more savings, you remove the weekly pass, which is about $16. So you're getting even more savings. And so when I spoke about the facade program, which had $300,000 of unused money, that could support a reduced cost from $52 to $15 for 4 years. And then any subsequent shortfall would have been absorbed in future transit growth. And now I see, to me, it's a little bit hypocritical to claim somebody's doing this for politics or for a particular vote. We had $1.5 million it's in this budget that's going to Brampton Beast. Seniors can't raise their own salaries like this council did, which cost taxpayers $500,000 for this term. Seniors aren't a hockey team. They can't come here and say we need $1.5 million. You talk about $2 million that this council, I didn't support it, wasted in this term. That could support a reduced cost seniors bus pass, monthly bus pass for 30 years. And somebody's questioning my priorities, whether I'm playing politics with this. Seniors have paved the way for me. A lot of the people here are seniors, but we can raise our own salaries. We get a car allowance. We can afford gas. We can afford car insurance. We live with that luxury. We've been blessed. A lot of people out there, and I said it before, take a look at the Peel poverty statistics. They can't afford it. So I object, and I'm a little bit offended that somebody says it's an election year or somebody's playing politics. And again, I appreciate the intentions by Councillor Spovieri. Another thing is this. We talked about our own budget. There's 4 members around here who are city councillors. We don't sit at the region. We don't have an additional regional council discretionary fund. So a lot of the people here cut our discretionary fund in half, but I challenge those people to go to the region and cut their regional budget in half, because I take a look at the numbers all the time. I hear, hey, Gurpreet, you know what, you're at the top of the list, you're the second biggest spender, you're the third biggest spender. I spent $8,999. $8,999 when I take a look at previous councils spending $50,000, $60,000 last year. And so when you take a look at regional plus city, I'm right in the middle of the list. So I don't understand why we use this. That's playing to the crowd. That's playing to the stands. In actuality, what the main problem is, $20 million, $21 million extra ratting in staffing costs this year. So that's the major issue here. I don't think a few $1,000s in discretionary funds, which I agree most councillors here use towards constituents, is the issue. And I'll say just one thing. I'm going to abstain from the referral vote. The reason is this is because the numbers work. Well, I won't stand up, and I'll just stay sitting down.
If you don't vote,
well, I'll just sit down. The reason is this because this motion that I put forward that's going to come in a little bit makes sense. The numbers work. There's no extra tax increase. It's all money that's being unspent right now. So it's just being transferred from one program to another. The facade program has $300,000 in extra cash in it that wasn't spent. That'll cover this for 4 years. Like I said, don't vote to raise your own pension benefit. Don't vote to increase your salary. Don't give $1.5 million away, which could fund this for 30 years if you have an issue with my motion. And don't tell me that I'm being political with it either.
Finished, Councillor Dillon? Finished. Okay, I'm going to ask the clerk because the motion has been changed. So I think before we go to Councillor Miles, we better ask the clerk to read it out. We might start a whole new debate.
Members of council, through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor Sprovieri and Councillor Pleshy, as the mover and seconder, have effectively withdrawn their motion, and they've moved what I will advise council as a new motion. It's that the following proposal be referred to staff for consideration and a report back to council in regard to possible reductions in the funds from the unused staff component of the Office of the Mayor's budget and/or unused portion of the council office budget as it relates to communications. Mr. Chair, effectively what this motion is proposing is for staff to report back on possible reductions to the Mayor's office budget and the council office budget without identifying where those funds would be redirected to. So the debate is no longer about needy seniors.
So I agree with the clerk that this is now a new motion. I'm going to take that new motion, I'm going to park it to the end. We're going to go through everything as we were supposed to at the beginning. And the last thing I'll take with this motion. Okay? So, Councillor Miles, you won't be speaking to the motion because it's not in front of you anymore?
I was going to call the question on that.
Oh, good for you. Councillor Berderos, yeah, there's no motion to speak to yet. So
Call the question and have done it.
We can still speak on the budget.
we have no, the budget's still in front of us. We still got to go through all those motions that we went through the other day. Still have to go through, and we still can debate them too. So,
Just for clarification,
yep.
Chair, you're suggesting that we'll be able to... Because I need a clarification on this new motion, but you're saying that to wait till when we get to that portion of it.
Yeah, the motion was withdrawn. There's a new motion on. I've decided as chair, I'm taking it to the bottom of the list. We'll go through everything else first and then deal with that at the end. Okay? Councillor Fertini?
I thought we talked about this during the budget, and I think it was coming from you saying we should go to the seniors, which we did, and we were supposed to get their input on the transit, and we did that, but because of the election, they were waiting for the following January to give us all the input at Flower City. Now we're putting this motion on. So I don't know, but I thought that's what we were directed to do already. No?
No, well, the motion will still, I'm assuming, Mr. Clerk, the motion that's in the budget will still come up at that point?
It will still come up?
Yep.
So we weren't directed to go to the seniors and get their input at the Flower City and then come back and for the following?
And it still will come up, we'll still have a chance to debate it. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bowman? You're free to talk about anything else now.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I just want to follow up on what Councillor Dillon had spoken about, the additional budget requests for 22 million for staffing. Now, from my understanding, that has a lot to do with hiring 20 new fire staff, hiring brand new transit staff, agreements that we've negotiated with a couple of unions. Is that not what the 22 million is made up of?
Through the budget chair, yes, the incremental increase in the budget for the salaries would include effectively any staff component of the newer enhanced services, which would include our Zoom service increase for 2018, the increase in the fire full response. It would also include the secondary unit task force, and there's a component within the Bram West interim branch, the expansion of that into the Southwest, which would include staffing dollars. And then beyond that, in terms of the change in the base, so that was dealing with the new enhanced, included in the base would be, yes, it would include changes to our collective bargaining agreement. So we do have agreements in place there for fire, transit, CUPE, and without that increase approved, we would have to try to find that funding some other way or cut programming.
CEO Slang?
Yeah. Through you, Chair, just to be clear that with that comes that there's no way we can deliver any of those new and enhanced services. So when it's all about people, so if you cut that labor component, we will not deliver any of the new and enhanced, and we'd, whether we could cut services in our base, we'd have to look at that, but you'd certainly violate all the collective agreements we promoted to in that 21 million.
So the answer is yes. If you voted against that increase, you'll be taking away all those new programs and probably violating collective agreements.
Okay, so the cost of the increase in minimum wage is also in there somewhere?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I don't know, Councillor Dillon, if it was a misunderstanding about where the 22 million came from, but if you don't support that 22 million, then we're not supporting any new firemen, any new transit, any raises, and we'll have to redo collective bargaining agreements, which I don't think we can do. So I just wanted to make sure that was understood. Thanks.
Councillor Fortini?
Thank you, through the chair. Going back to the task force, second unit, and I really didn't want to support it, but I would try anything to help out, and I have to agree with Chris, and I so believe we have to make it easier for these basement apartments, and that way widening driveways and all, but we're hiring a clerk, a prosecutor, supervisor, 4 bylaws, 4 inspectors, and again, I'm in favor of it, but can we do it maybe as a pilot project? I want them coming back next year and we only did 10 basements, and we spent all this money hiring 9 people, and at the end, they only caught 10 people, because at the end of the day, we only had 73 basements registered so far, and I think the expenses are too high. So maybe, and I thank Jeff Bowman here, Councillor Bowman, for nominating me on the task force, but I'd like to have a pilot project on that to see it, only for 1 year, and then we'll carry on.
Councillor Dillon?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to Councillor Bowman, and I do understand that. What my concern is and what a lot of the concerns that, the concerns that a lot of residents have brought to me is that there's nowhere here that we cut. To me, I understand that, but there's nowhere that we even looked at in cutting. And so that's a concern for a lot of the residents who contacted me about this. And the biggest concern is that 76% of tax revenue comes from residential. And I would like to see the numbers for the comparisons when we compare that to other municipalities. I've seen the average much lower. I don't have it on me right now, but I've seen it significantly lower. And I gave the example of Toronto as well, and Mississauga, which was mentioned by staff too. And 16% comes from business. And those are the 2 major concerns. And when we continually add on salaries. And that was one of the major things that McCarter said in his report, that too much of it goes to salary. And I do understand that we cut 100 or 200 or however many it was. And that was good news for a lot of the residents. Bad for people who get laid off, but in terms of the bottom line for the tax dollar, that was good news for them, because they feel like a lot of that bloat, to use that word, was gone, that we're really streamlining. But when they hear that we're adding $21 million in additional salary, that's a concern for them. So I do understand what you're saying, but these are just a little bit, some of these numbers are outrageous here, to be quite frank with you. 16% from business, that's not enough. We converted 70 acres of land, employment land, in 2015, and that's extra income. That would have balanced it even a little bit. And so those are my concerns. And again, I'm not going to support $21 million in extra salary increases.
Can I just respond?
All right, get back on the board. Councillor Willens.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I wish Chris was still here. I'm glad he came forward and was in support of those the secondary unit task force, because I'm sure it's unfortunate he spent so much time on it, because he probably had some other good ideas that we could look forward moving with other budgets. But it's not just the secondary task force. You have to look at the implications if we don't support it on what our bylaw guys are doing now, with spending a lot of time that they could be out there with other bylaw issues that we're getting more calls on, to be honest with you, than secondary units. So that's part of it. And if we don't support the secondary unit, we don't support the fire, and we don't support the the other part of it, the transit, then the secondary units, then there could be fires. We won't have the fire department to respond to the fires because we didn't support it. So it's a chain reaction. So
Thank you for being so brief, Councillor Willens. Councillor Medeiros.
Chair, I think just to pick up on, essentially what we're talking about is, the salary is connected to services. So if there's a service that someone's ready to put on the floor to cut, then do it. Because I think we've had, again, this is not a budget process today. This has been throughout the year. So if there was a service that we wanted to not continue to deliver, we should have had thorough conversations, strategic conversations, committee meetings that allowed us to reorientate some of our business lines. We can't, I think now, just simply say that we're going to cut a service and not understand its impact. But if there's a service to be cut, I welcome any motion on the floor. But to simply say, it's very clear as a growing population, I think the case has been made that it's a difficult decision. No one wants to increase it here around the table, but then let's be prepared to cut a service. And I said that since it's the first time I got elected. Residents often, when they complain about property tax going up, we don't like increasing property tax. That's the last resort. But we're a growing municipality, and these are the difficult decisions we have to make. But if there's a service out there, if there's any delegation, if someone wants to cut something, I say we bring it on. Thank you.
Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Just to respond to Councillor Dillon, and I just wanted to make it clear that these are extra services that we're providing. The McCarter report, if I remember correctly, criticized the city for increasing taxes with 95% of those tax dollars going towards salaries, if I'm not mistaken. And in this case, this is not anywhere near 95% of what's going to happen to salaries. This is about half, 50%, which is not bad. But I just, I can't sit here and say, we're going to cut the fire staff, we're going to cut transit. It's not something we can cut. I mean, so I just wanted to make sure there was no misunderstanding, Councillor, about what that money was. Thank you.
Councillor Sprovieri.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I sympathize with my colleague on how he's feeling, and I know that I've gone through those feelings myself many times, but I searched my mind to see where can we cut. That's something that staff doesn't really make that decision or suggestion. Usually those suggestions come politically from us. If we think that there's an overabundance of service, or if the service is too generous, and then we can say, okay, I think we could cut here and we cut there. I'd just like to remind my colleague that that a lot of this new money is going to the new growth area. The libraries in Ward 9, it's in there. Transit, we're getting the Zoom and extra buses in our areas. So these are it's the people who should really be upset are the people who are representing the old areas of Brampton that are not getting any new service
We're thinking of the whole city.
but certainly the new areas are impacting the old areas with these increases. So I cannot complain about getting the service because our residents need the service. Springdale has been without a library for 25 years. Springdale started 25 years ago, and they should have had a library probably there 10, 15 years ago. And finally we're getting one. So I can't say, let's not fund the library and let's cut on the library. We know that people in the new areas have a dire need for transit. And so I can't say, let's cut the transit. We know that the rec centers are overflowing with people, and so I can't say, let's cut the service in our rec centers. So it's a real dilemma that councillors who are really want to do the best for the residents and taking into account the hardship that people are going through, trying to make ends meet. And I totally sympathize with that. But again, if we're going to cut anything, we have to have some concrete suggestions. And this is not really the time to really that we should be doing this. We should have done that through the committee when we deliberated on the budget. If somebody had some ideas of where we could cut, that's where it should be coming out. So this is just for next year, Gurpreet. So you look at over the budget. Really, we had the books for a month. We could have gone through the books and
what about the mayor's budget?
Well, we're trying to. We just found out today, that her staff is supposed to be helping councils, the rest of the council.
You stick back to the discussion.
So I was not aware of that before, but I just found out today in the job description that her staff are supposed to be also helping council members. So that's why I raised that, because we're not getting the help. So, especially from communication, we're not getting any help there either. So. Anyway, Mr. Chairman, that's just wanted to just bring a little bit of a different angle to the whole situation. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Fortini.
Yes, thank you to the chair last time speaking, and to Councillor Willens, and I agree with you. It's not that I don't want to support it. I just don't want to hire 12 people, spend $1.8 million, and then at the end of the year, we're going to see that we only attack 10 basements. So that's the only reason. So I'm supporting 100%. We have to do something. I just like to always said we have to make it easier for the planning, easier for these people to legalize a basement, make it cheaper. At the end, they'll be paying more taxes on impact, and we have to focus on what we need as a basement apartment and not turn it into a condo, because it looks like the way I'm seeing it, we're turning it into condos. Thank you.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you very much. I'm going to say this as respectfully as I can. To even consider not supporting the $20+ million in staff adjustments is just ridiculous. Preposterous. It's ridiculous. We've got our friends from CUPE, our partners in delivering public services, sitting in the audience. We have Amalgamated Transit Union. We have fire. We have employment contracts with all of our staff. We have, in good faith, negotiated contracts and have employment contracts with these folks who keep the city running. To not support it is, I'm going to say it, it's just politics. To say you're not going to add $20+ million to meet your contractual agreements across the corporation. And I would have thought, Councillor Dillon, for somebody who ran for the NDP party, you, above all others around this table, would understand and appreciate that. This is, we have been building this budget by every single decision that we have made since January of this year. We have made decisions that we knew were going to have budget impacts, and we were reminded of that at the time, and we put our hands in the air and supported them, most of us, on most of the issues. For some, and depending on the issue, we voted against it because we didn't think that it was sustainable during the budget deliberations. But, this is a recommendation put forward by staff. We've had every opportunity, the pre-budget meetings, and Councillor Dillon, I don't know whether you attended any of those pre-budget meetings. My understanding was that you weren't able to attend, or you didn't attend any of them, but that was the time to gain a one-on-one understanding of every single detail that was in the budget book that was distributed to us. The time to better understand the 20+ million on the staff salaries was to have your one-on-one pre-budget with corporate services and with finance. That was when we drilled down. And then we had budget deliberations where we could review the questions that were asked by every member of council who did take the time to attend the pre-budget meetings, and to further deliberate and pass motions. So today really should be a culmination of really a lot of heavy lifting that's taken place over the course of the year, but more particularly and more specifically since the budget books were produced. Thank you.
Okay, we are now at the position of 2.5 hours in. Our procedural bylaw says that we have to take a break, otherwise we need unanimous decision to continue on. So I'm going to suggest that we take a 10-minute break and come back. We'll come back with the speakers when we'll be back. You know what? We're just going to go back and forth if we don't. So, okay, I can tell you what. I'll take a vote, and if it's unanimous, we will stay. If it's not unanimous, we will take a 10-minute break. All in favor of continuing on? Continue on. It's not unanimous. We're taking a 10-minute break. Has to be unanimous. Okay, Council, could I have you take your seats, please? I want to quickly remind everybody that there's an event downstairs going on the Montreal Massacre that you're all invited to. I remember seeing something on it, and I know the mayor has to speak at it, so if we want to go down there, we better be, our speech should be a little bit quicker and get down there. Otherwise, we're going to have to break at 7:30 and then come back afterwards. And I know none of us have had dinner, so let's try to be quick in your speeches, please. Thank you. Councillor Pleshy, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to say, I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you guys want to make cuts to the budget, then stop the growth. At least slow it down. We're in the predicament we are today because of the fast pace of population growth that we have in the city of Brampton. I don't know what this big thing is about being the fifth fastest growing city, or you want to be bigger than Mississauga. I don't understand it, why. What's the need? Like I've said before, slow it down if you want to make the cuts. Thank you.
Councillor Dillon.
Thanks to the chair. Just to respond to Councillor Moore, I did have my discussions with staff. I was unable to go to some of those meetings, which is why I personally met with Mr. Sutton as well. And I'll finish off by this. I think we'll get to the vote in a bit. I think there's other discussions we obviously need to have. And number one, I absolutely support job growth. I think there's no question that anybody here doesn't. And I spoke of luxuries before, but it was referenced to what the previous election I ran in, but for provincial. But in the city and municipalities, we're limited in our revenue collection. And the underlying point I was making was that we didn't cut anywhere. We didn't give confidence to our residents that we're trying to cut in other places when, in fact, we were warned about salary increases. And the second point was that I was speaking about imbalance, and the extreme imbalance we have in terms of residential to our commercial business, where we're looking at 77 compared to 16%. And I do understand the valid points absolutely by Councillor Moore and Councillor Sproveri. But the question becomes, and I'm hopeful that Councillor Moore can answer, why are we in this predicament? Why do we have this imbalance that we have? Why do we have this activity rate or jobs to population ratio that is unbalanced, again, to use that word? We're at 32 jobs per 100 people. Mississauga is at 66 or 67 jobs. 50% you're at a healthy rate. And I mentioned 70 acres before that we converted. We did an MCR, a municipal comprehensive review, which was, well, I'm getting to the point. A municipal comprehensive review when you want to convert commercial to residential. This was put in place by the province because of cities like Brampton. Over the past 25 years, 27 years, this city's converted 1,500 acres of employment land. It's not commercial zoning. This is actual employment land to residential. It's thousands of job opportunities lost, thousands of, it's a lot of revenue that's been taken away. And so I get what's going on here. I understand the point. I understand $21 million is involved with growth, and I appreciate your points on that. But why are we here? How did we get here? And why is it so easy to convert? Maybe if Councilor Moore wants to answer, why is it so easy to convert all that land, take away opportunity, and now say $21 million is not a big deal, and use growth as the reasoning for it? So I've had a lot of emails. I've had a lot of calls from residents, again, to use the word, who are struggling. And if we're continuously adding salaries, that's fine, because we need to complement the growth, but we're not cutting from anywhere. I don't think that satisfies my residents. I don't think that or constituents. I don't think that satisfies a lot of the residents out in Brampton. So hopefully you can respond to that.
Councillor Miles?
Because you were around during those years.
Councillor Miles?
I'm going to call the question, Mr. Chairman, and ask you to please proceed to the actual budget and the motions that are before us.
Okay, so we'll do that. We'll now go, I'll ask the clerk then to put the motions out. Oh, sorry, I have to vote on calling the question. All in favor of calling the question? 1, 2, 3, 4. That carries. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I will have the first, I'm going to have to, how do I get my screen to go up? No, my screen's not working like you guys. Yeah. Okay, there we go. So I'll ask the clerk to put up the motions one by one. We'll go through them, and I'll ask the clerk to review them.
Through you, Mr. Chair, members of council, the way we'll proceed with the vote, we'll first do a series of votes in regard to the Budget Committee recommendations from last week, and that's item 6.1 on today's agenda. We'll go through recommendation by recommendation. Following that, we'll deal with item 5.1, which is the corporate report on this evening's agenda. And following that, there will be the final motion that was introduced earlier this evening from Councillor Sproveri and Councillor Paleshi. Through you, Mr. Chair, as I've just explained, we're going through the Budget Committee recommendations first, which are the minutes from the Budget Committee from last week. So on the screen before you are the minutes. The first set are the substantive corporate budget recommendations. Recommendations BC 001 and BC 002 are just procedural motions to approve the Budget Committee agenda and to receive the presentation at that meeting from the CAO and Treasurer. BC 003 is on the screen, is at the line item under 2018 current budget for strategic communications with respect to the Brampton Beast funding be approved.
Okay, all in favor?
Beast.
That carries.
Vote on that, the Brampton Beast?
We just did.
No, recorded vote.
Oh, okay, we can call recorded vote.
Recorded vote's been requested on BC 003 as shown on the screen. All in favor, please stand to be counted. Showing in favor is Councillor Moore, Councillor Willens, Councillor Paleshi, Councillor Sproveri, Chair Gibson, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Fortini, Councillor Miles. All opposed to the motion, please stand to be counted. Showing opposed is Councillor Dillon, Councillor Medeiros, Mayor Jeffrey.
Just so we're clear on that last vote, that was only where the money was coming from, not the money itself. The money itself was already a decision of council. So if this was turned down, we would have had to find it somewhere else in the budget. Is that correct, staff?
That's correct, Mr. Chair, and that motion carries 7-3.
So we're all clear what we're voting on. Next item?
Sorry, Councillor Fortini.
Councillor Fortini on, we can separate anything you like. Which ones you want to separate? Oh, yeah, no, we get the conflicts of clerks and let us know, yes.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just to correct, that last vote was 8-3 in favor of the motion. The next motion is BC 004. The first part is Part 1, which has 4 subparts, and these are exclusions to allow for those members that declared a conflict of interest. So the vote is on Part 1, clauses A, B, C, and D.
That's the transfer.
So members of council, Councillor Gibson and Councillor Willens, the first part of this motion is to approve the current budget with the exception for certain parts. So you can stay for this portion.
My fault.
Question of clarification.
Yep, Councillor Dillon, question of clarification?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to the clerk, are we going to be voting individually on each of these, 1 through 9?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's up to council to decide.
I'd like a separate vote on each of them, particularly 1 to 4.
Okay, so we have separate, you asked for a separate vote on 1 to 4?
Yes.
Okay.
So the first vote is on Part 1 of BC 004.
All in favor? That carries.
The second is Clause 2, which is the 2018 current budget for the corporate departments as it pertains specifically to the compensation portion for transit. And I understand Councillor Gibson and Mayor Jeffrey declared a conflict, so those 2 members can leave. So this is Clause 2.
Can we get a recorded vote again? 1 to 4.
Recorded vote's been requested on Clause 2. All in favor of Clause 2 as shown on the screen, please stand to be counted. Showing in favor is Councillor Moore, Councillor Willens, Councillor Paleschi, Councillor Sprovieri, Acting Chair Medeiros, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Fortini, Councillor Miles. All opposed, please stand to be counted. Showing opposed is Councillor Dillon. Mr. Acting Chair, that motion carries 8-1, I believe. Yes. The next motion is Part 3, which relates to the 2018 current budget as it pertains specifically to the Public Works and Engineering Department. And Councillor Willens had declared a conflict on that.
Recorded vote.
Recorded vote's been asked.
Recorded vote's been requested on Clause 3. All in favor, please stand to be counted. Showing in favor is Councillor Moore, Councillor Paleschi, Councillor Sprovieri, Chair Gibson, Councillor Medeiros, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Fortini, Councillor Miles, Mayor Jeffrey. All opposed, please stand to be counted. Showing opposed is Councillor Dillon. Mr. Chair, that motion carries 9-1. 9-1. Yeah. The next motion is Clause 4, which is the 2018 current budget as it relates specifically to the compensation portion for the Recreation Division. And Councillor Fortini had declared a conflict.
Recorded vote.
Recorded vote's called.
Recorded vote's been requested on Clause 4 as shown on the screen. All in favor, please stand to be counted. Showing in favor is Councillor Moore, Councillor Willens, Councillor Paleschi, Councillor Sprovieri, Chair Gibson, Councillor Medeiros, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Miles, Mayor Jeffrey. All opposed, please stand to be counted. Showing opposed is Councillor Dillon. Mr. Chair, that motion carries 9-1. The next portion is Clause 5, which speaks to the 2018 capital budget for all corporate departments.
All in favor?
Recorded vote on Clause 5. All in favor of Clause 5, please stand to be counted. Showing in favor is Councillor Moore, Councillor Willens, Councillor Paleschi, Councillor Sprovieri, Councillor Dillon, Chair Gibson, Councillor Medeiros, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Fortini, Councillor Miles, and Mayor Jeffrey. Mr. Chair, that carries unanimously, 11-0. The next motion is Clause 6, which is the 2019 and 2020 current budget to be approved in principle for corporate departments.
I'm just, the clerk is just making a correction here, so giving her an opportunity. We're rushing her. Sorry. Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Charlotte. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor? That carries.
Clause 7 is the 2019 and 2020 capital budget for approval in principle.
All in favor? That carries.
Clause 8 is the 2018 current budget as it relates specifically to the Internal Audit Division. This is a recommendation from the Audit Committee.
All in favor? That carries.
Clause 9 is the 2019 to 2020
Peter,
current
can you
budget.
hang on for a second? Councilor Dillon, are you on for
No,
speaker? Can
no.
I take your name up? Okay, I just didn't want to forget you there.
Clause 9, sorry, Mr. Chair, is the 2019-2020 current budget for the Internal Audit Division,
All
as
in
recommended
favor?
from Audit Committee.
That carries.
Now we have a series of other procedural motions. BC 05 is just requesting the clerk's office to schedule tonight's meeting. BC,
Want to take a vote on that?
or we can do them as a package at the
What
end.
if we said no to this one? All in favor? That carries.
We can go to BC 006, which is, just scroll up a bit, is the delegation from David Lang, Brampton resident, in regard to the climate action plan, and that motion is referred to staff for a report back.
Right. All in favor? That carries.
BC 007 is the delegation from Leo O'Brien and Dr. Maureen Harper to be received.
All in favor? Carries.
Scroll down to BC 008. These are substantive local board budget recommendations. The first set in BC 008 relates to the Brampton Downtown Business Improvement Area, current 2018 current and capital budgets.
All in favor?
2019.
That carries.
The next is BC 009, which are the substantive budget recommendations for the Brampton Library Board.
All in favor? That carries.
The next set of recommendations are substantive transit recommendations. The first is in regard to the transit user fee budget recommendations, and that's BC 010.
All in favor? Recorded vote's been called.
Recorded vote on recommendation BC 010. All in favor, please stand to be counted. Showing in favor is Councillor Moore, Councillor Willens, Councillor Paleschi, Councillor Sprovieri, Chair Gibson, Councillor Medeiros, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Fortini, Councillor Miles, Mayor Jeffrey. All opposed, please stand to be counted. Showing opposed is Councillor Dillon. Mr. Chair, that carries 10-1. The next motion is BC 011. This is the motion placed by Councillor Dillon, and the motion from Budget Committee is to refer it back to staff for further review and consultation with various Brampton advisory committees. A recorded vote's been requested.
Sorry, just some clarification.
Yep, go ahead. To clarify?
Oh, thank you. Through the chair to the clerk, from the discussion I had with you, you said that you had indicated that the motion could be put forth minus the referral. So it's the motion will go as it was last week, if I'm not mistaken.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes. If these are recommendations from the Budget Committee, so a member could move with a seconder tonight a motion to strike out that recommendation and move that or some other proposal. This is the motion that is
So the motion's in
before
front of
council
us.
from the Budget
You wish
Committee.
to move it instead of referring it to?
Yeah, I want to move it.
Okay, you need a seconder.
Pat, you got a second? Second.
So
Yeah.
just
No, no.
so
A second?
for clarity,
Just second.
the Councillor Dillon is moving and Councillor Fortini is seconding, striking out that recommendation and replacing it with the original proposal and not referring it off.
Okay.
Can I speak to it?
Yep, you can speak to it. It's on the floor now. Councillor Dillon, are you finished?
Yes.
Okay, Councillor Sprovieri?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I could support the motion only if it was referring to seniors that in need, needy seniors, because not all seniors really need the break. A lot of seniors, it's a well-known fact that generally speaking, seniors have greater financial stability than the rest of the population. That's just generally speaking. So I can only support if it's only for the seniors that are in need, and not generally. So if the council would wish to make that adjustment, I would support it. And if not, I cannot support it. Thank you.
Okay, I haven't heard a change. Alex, did you wish to speak to this?
Sure, if I may, through you, Chair. Just in terms of the low-income seniors, part of the council direction that we had before to go back to the regional council, it was taken by our regional councillors, is to look at that affordable pass. So we're in the midst of discussions with the region. The $52 pass that currently exists today for seniors in Brampton, if they meet the criteria of a low-income senior, for example, this affordable pass program will allow them to get a 50% discount. So in essence, they're paying whatever it is, $26 for that pass, and the region will pay us the rest. So again, I just want to make sure that we clearly understand that, because that is an option for low-income seniors, and that affordable pass program is being developed under council direction with the region, understanding that we are coming back to council with a report once we understand what that cost is going to be for the portal that we agreed to share in that cost. And that will be, we don't know what that dollar value will be. We'll have to come back to council with a report on that once we understand that from the region.
So just so we're clear on that, the region would pay us, therefore there wouldn't be a cost to our budget because we get the money from the region.
That's correct, Your Chair.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Moore?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to call the question, but I do have a procedural question. Can I do both?
Mr. Clerk?
No.
No.
So I can't call the question and question your ruling?
Call the question, and then it's
It
up
would
to
be my
council.
ruling.
Yeah.
But
The ruling.
do you have a point of clarification?
Well, I have a point of clarification. If it
Then
was the
ask
will of
first.
committee, and there was a resolution passed to refer it, I didn't support that. I was on the losing side of that vote. However, if that was the will of committee, how can one member of council just arbitrarily change it? It seems to me that you need to vote on the referral from the committee, or the recommendation from the committee, which was a referral. If that fails, then a councillor can put forward another motion.
So through you,
Keep the
Mr.
main
Chair,
motion on the floor.
the Budget Committee is a subordinate committee to Council. Council is supreme. So the recommendations before us tonight are the recommendations of Budget Committee. It is fair game for a member of Council to take a recommendation such as this one from Budget Committee and move a motion to strike it out or amend it as they see fit, as long as it's properly moved. A motion has been properly moved by Councillor Dillon, seconded by Councillor Fortini, so it's a proper motion. My advice to the Chair.
Okay,
Council.
that's fine.
I would agree with it.
I did call the question.
Okay. Are you calling the question
I
now?
called the question.
Okay. Councillor Dillon, you haven't spoken, or?
Yeah, no, I'm just going to make a quick comment.
Did the councillor not speak on it?
Yes, he did.
Yes,
because
he
I
did.
didn't speak to this motion, did it?
No,
Yes, he
question's been called, Councillor Dillon.
Fair enough. Sorry, can I just get a clarification?
A point of clarification, I guess you can, as long as you're
Yeah,
not
I just
speaking
want
to
to
it.
just confirm that the motion is still as is the way I presented it, right? Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the motion that you've moved is that the referral be struck out and your original motion as presented at Budget Committee be presented this evening for a
Yes.
vote. And that's what's in the red on the screen.
Yes.
So I haven't spoken, so I'm going to speak on this. The problem with this is I see it. First of all, I agree with the comments that Councillor Maderos made and Councillor Moore made, that the region's already doing something and helping, and the director pointed that out. But also, this is good to take it out of a surplus this year, but you're strapping next year and the year after and the year after to be in the budget. So, that's the type of decisions that have been made in the past, and wrong decisions in my opinion. If you're going to do it, then do it. Just do it, and don't take it out of any other surplus, and live with it. But this would be irresponsible to me because you are strapping the following years. So I will vote against it. I don't see anybody else. Are we asking for recorded vote, I'm assuming? Okay.
Recorded vote's been requested on Councillor Dillon's motion, seconded by Councillor Fortini, as shown in the red. All in favor, please stand to be counted. Showing in favor is Councillor Dillon, Councillor Fortini. All opposed, please stand to be counted. Showing opposed is Councillor Moore, Councillor Willens, Councillor Paleschi, Councillor Spravieri, Chair Gibson, Councillor Medeiros, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Miles, and Mayor Jeffrey. Mr. Chair, that motion loses 2-9.
Okay. Next motion.
So the next motion will be 2017 operating budget and reserve report as of Q3 2017. This was presented to Budget Committee, so it's Budget Committee recommendation BC 012.
Okay. All in favor of that? That carries.
The next set of motions are really just correspondence and other related matters arising from the Budget Committee. BC 013 is to receive a report that was referred to Budget Committee on shade structures for receipt.
All in favor? Carries.
BC 014 is to receive correspondence from the Brampton Board of Trade.
All in favor? That carries.
And BC 015 and BC 016 are to receive correspondence from the Clerk's Office and to adjourn the Budget Committee meeting.
All in favor? That carries.
So, Mr. Chair, that concludes the first part of the motions. The second part is item 5.1, which is the corporate report that's in your agenda in regard to the 2018-2020 budget approval. It has a series of recommendations that are shown on the screen in regard to approval of the operating budget and the capital budget, and these are really recommendations to give effect in terms of the financing and accounting for the substantive motions that Council has just voted on.
Mr. Kirk, did we do that one?
Yeah, we've done that one.
Okay, that's signed,
Yeah.
okay. Everybody understand this? All in favor? That carries.
Mr. Chair, the final part is the new motion that was introduced this evening from Councillor Spravieri, seconded by Councillor Paleschi. It is shown on the screen. Recorded vote's been requested on the motion moved by Councillor Spravieri, seconded by Councillor Paleschi. All in favor of the motion, please stand to be counted. Showing in favor is Councillor Paleschi, Councillor Spravieri. All opposed to the motion, please stand to be counted. Showing opposed to the motion is Councillor Moore, Councillor Willens, Councillor Dillon, Chair Gibson, Councillor Medeiros, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Fortini, Councillor Miles, and Mayor Jeffrey. Mr. Chair, that motion loses 2-9.
Okay. Next.
We need to do,
Okay, committee, we've done. We now have a 15-minute, if needed, public question period. Is there anybody from the public that's here tonight that would like to come down? Guys, please. Anybody here from the public who would like to come down to ask a question on anything on the budget on tonight's meeting? Anybody? Seeing none, thank you very much. Do we have a bylaw?
transit bylaw, transit fees bylaw.
Okay, so we have a transit fee bylaw, the bylaw 262, 2017, before council at a special meeting of December 6, 2017, be given the required number of readings and taken by the mayor and the city clerk and the corporate seal affixed thereto. Guys, I can't hear myself think. All in favor? Thank you. Well, you should have thought of that before you were interrupting me.
Item 10.1 is confirming bylaw.
The motion is that the following the bylaw before council at a special meeting of December 6, 2017 be given a required number of readings taken by the mayor and the city clerk and the corporate appeal fixed thereto. All in favor? That carries. And the last motion, favorite one, moved by Councillor Moore and Councillor Provieri to adjourn. All in favor of adjourning? That carries. Thank you very much.
Regular meetings next week.